And again, this will be, this is being taped, all the slides and the audio and everything I will put together and put up on my YouTube channel within the next week or week and a half, just like the one that we had a month or so ago, which is up on my YouTube channel. And if anybody doesn't know how to find the YouTube channel, I just had my webmaster make that easier for everybody. Now, if you go to my website at davidgetoff.com, there's a big green banner across there, and to the right of it, it says David's YouTube channel. If you click on that, it brings you right there with all the videos that you can watch for free. Or if you click on the green banner that's to the left of that, that's for people that want to rent, because everything on my YouTube channel is free. That's for people that want to rent my 18-week course in nutritional supplements, my 30-hour course in attaining optimal health. I've got diabetes tape up there. An eating tape is going up shortly. I think there's about 8 DVDs which I've produced over the years, which were just redone to make sure they're accurate and are all up there for people if they want to rent them. I used to sell the DVDs. Price Pottinger still does. They have the DVDs for sale for anywhere from $39.95 to $77.95. But I've updated them, and you can get them for $12.95 instead, right on my channel anywhere in the world and watch them. It's just, I wanted to get that done so people could watch them. So it makes life easier, and people can find what they want to look at. So, why I always begin with supporting liver and kidney function. So no matter what supplements I'm talking about, liver and kidney has to be gone over, because our liver and our kidneys, unless you've donated one, you only have one, then it's your liver and your kidney, are the organs that help usher all of the poisons out of our body. And if either or both of those is not working as well as they should work, and we start taking a bunch of nutrients, even the good things like nutrients have to be ushered out of our body. And so all of a sudden somebody says, I took a multivitamin, I felt like crap. How come I tried, somebody said, try mine. I tried theirs, I still felt like crap. How come a multivitamin is making me feel bad? That's very simple. Because your liver or your kidneys, or both, are so overloaded that just having to process the things your cells all need and get the excess out is further overloading them. And the sad part is that the lab tests that the doctors were taught to rely on, that tell you, supposedly, that your liver is working fine, your kidneys are working fine, don't go outside of their range and alert the doctor that, it's not working fine, until that organ is more than 70% not doing its job as well as it should. So they can say, no, there's nothing wrong with your liver and kidneys, because that's what they're taught. But they're wrong. So I always support liver and kidney function with everybody. That's what I just went over. They're definitely overlooked. They're overlooked by everybody. That's the problem. See, when the lab tests don't show you the facts, then both the holistic people and the regular people are misled, because they looked at the same lab tests, and the lab test says that they're fine, but the lab test is not accurate, and so we have a problem. And so we have to support them irregardless, or regardless. My father would get mad at me if he ever heard me say irregardless. That's not a word, David. Regardless is the word, not irregardless. People use wrong words all the time. My new pet peeve for the last 5 years, the word that I hear misused more than any other word on the radio, on TV, I don't think in print, but then I don't read the newspaper, Linda reads it, is the word myself. People are always using myself in a sentence when it's grammatically incorrect. It should either be I or me. And they're saying myself. I'm not sure where that came from. Everybody's doing it. So lab tests are wrong because they're not accurate. So I consider that to be as smart as only adding gas to your tank when you're running out of gas. We want to support things before they're so bad that we get a symptom from them. I mean, if the only time you put gas in your tank is when you have to call AAA to come and bring you some because you just ran out of gas, that's the wrong way to work. So I want enough of everything that there's extra of everything. And, if my liver has to do something more today, because maybe I walked in the aisle in the supermarket that my really sensitive patients can't get anywhere near, which is either the detergent aisle or the aisle that has pesticides and herbicides, because the smells will set them so far back that they will be in bed for a week. After I've worked with them for a couple of years, that doesn't happen anymore after we've got enough poisons out. But that's how toxic they are. But their doctor doesn't know that because their kidney and liver tests look just fine. So I like everything to be much, much, much better. You know, we don't want to, same thing with toilet paper. Oh yeah, okay, so when there isn't any left, it's time to buy more. No. When I moved out to Dearborn Valley, which is where we lived until the wildfires took my house in 2007, people were saying, but David, where's the closest store? It's about 25 minutes away. What happens if you run out of toilet paper? You know, and after the 5th or 6th or 7th person said something like that, I finally decided that I was going to come up with something which was maybe just a little bit nasty, but not enough that would bother me saying it. I go, I graduated kindergarten. I make sure there's enough extra that I'm never going to run out. There's only 5 rolls left. I know I've got to buy another big bag. So I don't understand why people run out of stuff that's used on a regular basis, because when you grab the second to last or third to last or fourth to last one, you buy more. Very simple. All right. 99% of all toxic chemicals didn't exist on this planet 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, because they're all human-made. We have to be politically correct. I don't try to be politically correct, but sometimes, instead of saying man-made, because there are plenty of women chemists, we'll say human-made. But in any event, most of these chemicals didn't exist. Therefore, it isn't possible for our liver and our kidneys or any other part of our system to have developed the abilities to handle things that are not part of the planet, that were made in a laboratory. And so we are always overloaded by this stuff and have no idea. Lots of stuff we're exposed to all the time, and it didn't exist 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. The chemicals that come out of new carpets, the chemicals that come out of new paint, until it finally completely, dries or cures, all those different things. New car smell, that's a good one. All of my really sensitive patients can't ever get into a new car and can't rent a car if they go someplace, because rental cars are never old cars. They get rid of them before they're a year old and they get new ones. So they can't get into that car because somebody will say, oh, that's a new car smell. Yeah, I noticed a new car. And they'd be in bed for a week trying to get rid of all the poisons that make up that smell, because those are all of the different chemicals that are in the upholstery to make it more stain resistant, all the chemicals that are in the upholstery to make it more fire resistant. We do some funny things in this country because they make sure that infant bedding in a crib has been doused in nerve poisons and immune poisons called fire retardant chemicals. And I guess, since we're talking about infant's bedding, I guess we're trying to make sure that if the infant is smoking in bed, that it can't catch on fire. It's just, and meanwhile we're poisoning them all. So what are we going to do? All right. So again, your body's liver and kidneys have not been able to develop the ability to do any of this because these chemicals weren't there. They just weren't there. And so they just slowly accumulate in our tissues over and over and over again. And people will say, well, David, how do you know they accumulate in our tissues? How do you know they're there? Well, because a beautiful, big, nonprofit watchdog organization called the Environmental Working Group, and it's EWG, environmentalworkinggroup.org, did a fabulous study in 2003 and another one in 2006. First one was called Body Burden, the Pollution in People. You can just Google Body Burden, the Pollution in People, in quotation marks, so it's that exact phrase, and you'll get their entire study. And they tested a whole bunch of people for like 160 or 180 different chemicals. They found 75 to 100 in every single person. Including pesticides that had been outlawed 30 years before. They're still in the environment. Yes?
Did you say body bird?
Body burden. B-U-R-D-E-N. Body burden, the pollution in people. Yep. So they just accumulate in our tissues. And there it is. Body burden, the pollution in people. 2003 studies. And things are worse now because that was 2003, and we don't end up with less and less chemicals in our environment. Maybe Mars or some other planet that does things correctly, but not here. We end up with more and more. So, because clearing out poisons can cause an overload, we always have to go slow as we're cleaning out poisons. So if somebody decides to buy some kidney support, some liver support, I can give you a card of the woman who runs a website in San Diego specifically to try and make available some of those products, because I lecture on them and they're on my videos and everything, and you can't get them in a health food store. We always want to go slow. So when you're taking any product which helps our organs or our cells to cleanse themselves, We want to go at a speed that produces no symptoms at all. And I get real mad at some of the holistic health people where somebody will say, yeah, I was working with this man or this woman, and they gave me some stuff for cleansing my body. And it made me feel horrible. And I called them up a couple days after I started, and I said, I feel like crap. And the person said, great, that means you're pulling poisons out. No, horrible. That means you're at a dose that's much too high for your body. We want to go slow enough that you can't feel it. I mean, if you've got a filthy room and you go in there and you turn on your vacuum cleaner, and in 5 seconds, the exhaust coming out of your vacuum cleaner stirs up so much dust on the floor that everybody in the room is coughing to death. You think that's the way to clean the room? No. So we have to do something so that doesn't happen. So we're cleaning the body, we want 0 symptoms. And sometimes people will say, well, David, you told me keep on going down until I get no symptoms, and I'm trying a drop. So like a drop of the kidney product and a drop of the liver product, and within 3 or 4 days it still builds up and I don't feel good. Okay, so let's try an eighth of a drop. David, I never seen a dropper that can give me an eighth of a drop. I go, as soon as I explain it to you, you'll go, oh, of course. Well, that's fine. Okay, explain it to me. All right, so take 4 ounces of water, put 1 drop in there, and mix it up. Okay, so we have 1 drop and 4 ounces of water. There are 2 tablespoons in an ounce. So if it's 4 ounces of water, that's 8 tablespoons. If you mix up that single drop and take a tablespoon of that, you just took an eighth of a drop. So we can always make things less to be able to make sure that we don't have symptoms, because I don't want symptoms of detox. That means we're going too fast. So we started at a low dose, we increased slowly, we reduced to the lower dose if there were any symptoms, and there's no rush. It really doesn't matter. If somebody says, well, yeah, but I don't want to stay down at an eighth of a drop for a long time, well, so every 3 weeks we try 2/8 of a drop. And if that doesn't cause a problem, we stay there for a week or 2. Okay, try 3/8 of a drop, 3 tablespoons. No, I don't feel as good. Okay, back down to 2/8. There's no rush. We're going forward. Many people here remember from when we were a kid the old story about the tortoise or the turtle and the hare. I see very few heads going up and down. That was an old story. I mean, I'll be 68 in a couple of months. About the rabbit and the turtle that are having a race. And the rabbit knows that the turtle's barely moving. It can get there with no problem with its eyes closed. It can get there and back 25 times. So it's going and doing all sorts of various different things over and over and over again, and all of a sudden, the hare is now back looking and wondering, and the turtle's already crossed the line. Because yeah, it took a long, long time. But the hare wasn't looking, because the hare could go so fast. But slow and steady wins the race, and we don't want symptoms. All right, so what symptoms might come from detoxification? So if you're doing something that can help remove poisons from your body, what are the things that you might feel that I don't want you to feel? That when that happens, you go, okay, let's slow down. So the most often one is feeling more tired. Body's trying to process all of these poisons because you're supporting your liver and kidneys' ability to get poisons out of you. And you go, yeah, I felt fine the first day I took it, the second day I took it, the third day, I know I got just as much sleep as I normally get, and I feel more tired. Well, if there's no other reason for you to feel more tired, it's probably the liver and kidney drops, or more tablets, whatever you're taking. And it can take 3 or 4 or 5 days to build up. So we just stop them for a couple days until you feel normal. And we reduce the drops, or if it's tablets, we reduce the number of tablets, or if you're already taking 1 tablet, we take 1 every other day. So whatever we have to do to reduce the speed so that it doesn't build up and give you a symptom. We do not want symptoms. Another possible symptom is nausea. Somebody starts to feel nauseous because we're pulling poisons out too fast. Third one is headaches or dizziness. Somebody says, I never get headaches. Why am I getting a headache? Oh, yeah, that's right. I just changed the dose on that a few days ago. That's very possibly what's going on. Loose stool, the body says, I'm trying to get rid of this stuff. We're going to get rid of it in the toilet. And somebody gets diarrhea. Some people get a skin rash when they're trying to get rid of things. And just not feeling right. So if somebody says, I can't really explain it. I just don't feel the way I normally feel. It just doesn't feel as good. And if you've been moving a detox up or something, very possible that's it. If you can't think of anything else different, that's it. Stop it for a few days. The just not feeling right goes away. Start again, it comes back. Okay, that was it. We need a lower dose and to go more slowly. Anytime somebody has something that you know happens when you're nervous, or you know happens when you're stressed, so when somebody that you don't really like comes to visit, but they're family members and you're supposed to see them every once in a while, and your knee hurts from an injury 35 years ago. Okay, if you have something that happens when you are under stress, well, detox is stress, so maybe that's what will happen. So any of those things could be something that happens if you're detoxing too fast. So since we don't want to ever feel worse, we just reduce it to a lower dose that isn't a problem, and we go up more slowly. If the symptoms return, reduce it for another 3 weeks. So you reduce it to an amount that doesn't cause a problem for 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks, you go, okay, we can bring it back up again. Still get the same symptom. Oh, we didn't get enough out yet. We're going forwards. Reduce it again. Go at the lower rate for another 3 weeks. Try it again. There's no rush. We're cleaning things. It's not a race. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Slow is best. I do not like symptoms occurring from something I am helping somebody do to pull poisons out of their body. So next, that's as far as next after liver and kidney support, is usually we try to cover as many nutrients as we can all at once. And as many nutrients as we can all at once is a multi. You know, a good multivitamin has lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, all sorts of trace minerals, all sorts of other co-nutrients. And so a good multi is generally what I do number 2. Number 1 is liver and kidney. Number 2 is a good multi. The multi can't be taken once a day unless you are also breathing for half of the day. Most people can't breathe half the day because if they don't breathe the second half of the day, they're dead the first day. So what you have to remember is most vitamins and minerals stay in your body at a decent level, so your body has them there to use them as it needs them, for somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 hours. But the day is 24 hours. So if we want them there all day long when you need them, and all night long when you're regenerating, so you still need them, then we have to take 1 dose with our first meal of the day and 1 dose with our last meal of the day. And that way they're covered. So even if what you have is a 1 a day, and I don't want to throw it out, I bought this 1 a day, fine. So until that bottle is empty, take your 1 a day at breakfast and dinner. Yeah. And then when it's done, get one that was designed to be at breakfast and dinner. It's got to have high enough doses of all of the absorbable forms of the different nutrients, because a lot of them are really crappy. Like the one called 1 a day is garbage. All the Centrum products are garbage. Centrum Silver, Centrum everything else, they're all garbage. They don't have enough. No nutritional biochemist would ever use any of those. The doctors would, because they're not taught nutrition, so they don't know any better. But no person that knows nutrition would ever do that. So they get used by the people that have no knowledge and no instruction in nutrition. There are 2 large groups of people that fall into the category of they don't know very much at all about nutrients. And those 2 are physicians and dietitians. That's just not taught in their schools. They're both taught that if you eat a well-balanced meal of adequate calories, all your bases are covered. And they even say that's what the research says. But they weren't shown the research because there isn't any. So the professors couldn't have shown them that has been proven, because it's been disproven over and over and over again. There's no research that backs that up. All the research shows multiple deficiencies of people, no matter what they're eating, no matter what type of diet they like, no matter how wealthy or poor they have, no matter where they're eating, or whether they're being fed in the hospital. That's the worst, because they found over and over again that when they do studies on the nutrients, when somebody enters a hospital, they've done this a couple times and published it in huge medical journals, and then they do another study the day the man or woman is released. Their nutrients are always worse because of how bad hospital food is. But that's not surprising, because hospital food is required by federal regulations to be set up by somebody, registered dietitians, that aren't taught any of this. So some of them, just like some doctors, I have friends that are registered dietitians, I've got friends that are doctors, but they've all gone into lots of additional education to learn all the things they weren't taught. So something doesn't say you're not going to know anything. Something just says you weren't taught anything. Obviously, you can decide you want a whole bunch more. All right.
What vitamin do you recommend?
I'm going to go over a couple.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a couple examples.
Okay, thank you.
You got it? Okay. It also has to not have any toxic chemical additives or coloring agents. So we don't want the ones that have FD&C yellow number 5 and FD&C blue lake number something else. Those are in things like Centrum Silver and 1 a day. They're putting chemical agents that are not good for us. So we don't want any toxic chemicals or coloring agents. For 50 and over, the two that I get the best results with, and we're all different, I'm just giving you two. And the reason that I like these best is because the capsule is a very good vitamin made by a company that's been making them for I think they started in the early 70s. So we're talking about 30, 40, 50 years. It's got a decent amount of everything, but not so much that it overloads. And a lot of times, overloads happen very easy as we get older because we've accumulated more chemicals. And the second one is a liquid. So it's really easy to adjust the amount. So on the left is a 1 quart liquid, an exceptional multi, has to be kept in the refrigerator. Dose is 1 tablespoon, which is also equal to a half an ounce. So half an ounce or a tablespoon with breakfast and dinner. It's not an inexpensive multi because it's really, really complete. It costs about $54 a quart, and a quart is a month's supply. And that's what it looks like, Core pH Balancer Multi. And it's from a company called Mother Earth Labs online. And on the right is a 4 capsule a day rather than a liquid. And it's, again, very complete, although not as complete as that liquid and not as expensive as the liquid. And it's set up to be 2 capsules with breakfast and 2 more with dinner. But again, if somebody does that and doesn't like the way they feel, they can drop it down and just take 1 capsule with breakfast and 1 capsule with dinner for a while. And after they've done enough kidney liver support, try going up to 2. Much, much less expensive because it's about $23 for a month time. So the bottle is somewhere around, I think, $68. So it's $23 a month as opposed to $54 a month. And they're both available online. Ultra Frida Iron Free and Core pH Balancer. Core pH Balancer is directly from the manufacturer, which is Mother Earth Labs. And you always want to buy it from them because you want to know it's really, really fresh. And you get it, and it goes in your refrigerator, and just shake it up and take a little half-ounce measure or a 1 tablespoon measure. I always like to tell people, a tablespoon is a spoon that if you look at it, it says 1 tablespoon on it. A tablespoon is not your soup spoon. I have no idea what size that is. There's no regulation that says that has to be a 1 tablespoon size. We call it a tablespoon. We call this a teaspoon. We call that a tablespoon. But it's not. It's just a term we use. So since we're measuring something, we want a half an ounce, which is equal to a tablespoon. That's a measuring tablespoon. So I have a lot of people that go, yeah, but those measuring tablespoons, they're not meant to go in your mouth so the edges are sharp and everything. Oh, that's fine. So grab a tablespoon from your measuring set, fill it with water, pour it into your soup spoon, your tablespoon, and see whether they're very close. If they're very close, fine, use yours. But very often people tell me, yeah, I filled up 2 of my servingware tablespoons with the measuring tablespoon. I go, that means your servingware tablespoon is exactly a half a tablespoon. If you know that, that's fine, you fill it up twice. But when I say tablespoon, that's a measuring tablespoon, which is also equal to a half an ounce. So either way, one on the left is a fantastic multi. The one on the right is far better than most of the stuff in the health food store. Not quite as unbelievably complete, but it costs a lot less. And of course, if somebody takes a tablespoon twice a day and says, I don't feel good on a tablespoon twice a day. Okay, so stop it for a couple days. That feeling goes away. And take a third of a tablespoon. For people that cook or remember cooking, there are 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. And therefore, a third of a tablespoon is a teaspoon. So now we take a measuring teaspoon with breakfast and dinner. Do that for a month or 2. Wonder if my body can handle more now. Take 2 teaspoons. That's 2/3 of a tablespoon. Doesn't feel good, go back to the 1. Feels fine, stay at that for a while. And eventually, especially if you're doing kidney liver support, you'll be able to take the full dose. The adult dose is a tablespoon, which is a half an ounce twice a day. And that comes, I don't know why the company does this. I guess they're just trying to accommodate everybody. So you can get what's in the picture, which is a 1 quart plastic bottle, which is the way I order it for people. Then they have a 1 quart sort of weird looking measuring bottle. It looks more like when you buy oil in the stores. You squeeze it and the stuff goes in to measure out. I can't be bothered with it, but they fall over. I want a nice round one. For people that are really perfectionists and don't mind spending even more money, they have it in a 1 quart glass bottle. That weighs too much to ship. I'm not interested. And for people where there are a bunch of people in the family on it, they have it in gallons. So I tell people, since it will last very nicely for 6 months in the refrigerator, that the first 4 times you buy it, especially if you're using a tablespoon twice a day, which means it's only a month's supply, buy the quart, rinse it out, and save it. And then after you've got 3 empty quarts and you're working on your last one, next time save some money. Buy a gallon. You're saving almost as much as a quart. When it comes in, shake it up, fill the 4 quarts up, put them back in the refrigerator, and now you just saved money on your next 4 quarts. So just something you can do. I always want to help people save money if I can. So why a good multi is not enough. Some vitamins are fat-based, A, E, fish oils, and a couple of others. And because fats don't dissolve in water, I mean, if you have a glass of water and you melt some butter in it, you can't stir it in. It just sits on top. And so in the multi, it wouldn't stay in there well. If you put it in the capsules, which is a capsule full of a powder, now we put a liquid in the powder, and it's not designed to be a liquid capsule, it starts to open up the capsule and eat through it. So some things they just can't put very much of in, so we have to have them separately for that reason. The best forms can't often be kept in a liquid form. They'll dissolve the gelatin capsules. They need to be in a liquid inside a liquid-filled capsule, and so we have to get those separately in a liquid-filled capsule. Vitamin C does dissolve very easily, but it's not stable in liquid form. Some of the most interesting experiments I saw done 20, 30, or 40 years ago was they picked 2 oranges off a tree, off the same branch, and they analyzed the amount of vitamin C in one of the oranges. They took the other orange, put it in the refrigerator to keep it as stable as possible for 1 full day, 24 hours, and then analyzed its content of vitamin C. It had decreased by 50%. Half of the C had already gone away just after picking it off the plant. And when you buy oranges in the store, they weren't picked 24 hours ago. So they have even less vitamin C. And when you buy orange juice, which of course is mostly sugar water, the vitamin C that they put in there to make it higher, most of it is degraded and isn't there anymore. So vitamin C needs to be usually in a powdered form, whether it's a powdered filled capsule or whether it's pressed into a tablet. And so that the amount you want and the instability makes it so that should be taken separately. And we'll be going over amounts I like to use. Then there are others like probiotics, beneficial bacteria. Well, you take probiotics and you leave them in liquid form, they're very unstable, so that doesn't work. Most of the things that claim to have probiotics in liquid form, they're dead. Yogurt, they can stay decently in the refrigerator if it's really a good quality yogurt, but the supplements, most of them are dead. So they need to be in their own dry-filled capsule and then refrigerated. And so we have to have them in a separate. So these are all reasons that we have all these extras that aren't in the multi, that if we want to have enough of, we have to take them separately. B12 is totally different. B12 is something that's very poorly absorbed the older we get, which is why lots of doctors who know that and who know a little bit about nutrition tell their patients that they'd like to run a B12 test, and then when it's lower than it should be, which is usually, especially if they know that the test is wrong. So when the test says it should be, and I'll make up 2 numbers. The test says from one lab that your B12 level should be between 500 and 1200. And you come back at 100. You go, that's not between 500 and 1200. So they give you a B12 shot. Sometimes it's 500 or 600, so it's within their range, but down at the very bottom. And they go, oh, you're okay. No, you're not okay, because the range is wrong. The range is normal people. And I don't want to be a normal people. Do you know what normal people die of in the United States? Cancer, heart disease, complications, diabetes. And now Alzheimer's getting pretty big. So since I would rather die of this old-fashioned thing called old age, and I don't want to die of the things that normal people die of, I don't want to be normal. So if those are normal values, then they're too low for me. I want healthy values. They don't know what they are. So I want people's B12 levels to be anywhere from the top 20 or 25% of that range, or very often 30 or 40% above it. So somebody comes back and says, yeah, my doctor said stop taking your B12. You're at 1600. No, don't stop taking your B12. B12 is 100% non-toxic. It cannot hurt you. I'd rather have more there. But because it doesn't absorb well, which is the reason the doctors give you shots, the amount in the multi very often doesn't do what we might need from it. And so that also often gets taken separately. And the separate is either a spray that you spray in your mouth and sort of hold it in your mouth for maybe a minute before you swallow it, because the absorption occurs through your oral membranes, or it's a lozenge, which you do not swallow. You pop it in your mouth, and you just let it sit there until it goes away. You know, people that have a lot of saliva, maybe it's gone in 10, 12 minutes. People that have very little saliva, maybe it's sitting in your mouth for 20 minutes before it's gone. That's fine. You just leave it there until it goes, because as it's dissolving, the B12 is absorbing through your oral mucous membranes. And the doctors were not taught that you can very, very, very adequately absorb B12 in those oral preparations. So over and over again, I get patients that come in, and I've read their lab reports, and I know that they said, yes, I get a B12 shot every 6 weeks. And I always ask this question, and some people in here may have had this happen. I go, so when you get your B12 shot every 6 weeks, has that been just the last couple months or something, this particular oh, no, my doctor's been doing that for me for years. And when you get your B12 shot, do you feel any different at all? Oh yeah, I feel so much better. That means that the doctor is not doing their job. That would be like saying, okay, I'm going to let my car run out of gas on the highway because, wow, it's going to be so much better when I pour the gas in. No, I don't want to run out of gas. So the doctor should be making the shots close enough together that you haven't gotten so low that giving you more makes you notice a difference. So I always say, so you love getting those shots, don't you? Well, I love the feeling I get from them. No, I don't like the shots. I go, good, you'll never need another one. We're going to give you an oral preparation that you're just going to put in your mouth and let it dissolve. And, we'll do that usually once a week is enough to keep it. Oh, no, my doctor says those don't work. Well, your doctor thinks they don't work. That's what he was taught or she was taught in medical school. That's fine. I have no problem with that. So what we're going to do is, you're not going to go to your next shot. You can call them up and cancel it. Don't just not show up. That's rude. And we're going to put you on a good B12 lozenge. And I think I'm going to have names up here as I go through this stuff. And then the nurse is going to call you and say, you missed your last shot. And you're going to say that the nutrition professional I'm seeing said I don't need it anymore. He's giving me an oral lozenge. And then the doctor's going to say they don't work. And you're going to say, he told me you were going to say that. So I will come in if you wish and let you draw blood and do a test. But I will not let you give me the shot. I want you to run a test and see if my B12 is fine. And the doctor runs the test. The person's B12 is totally fine. They go, wow, I didn't know it could be absorbed that way. And we taught one more doctor one more thing. So it's absorbed very, very well if the right ones are used. So the additional nutrients are real vitamin A. Real vitamin A is what I call, it's my term, an animal molecule. What that means is that there isn't a single molecule of vitamin A in anything that grows from the ground. No plant source vitamin A. When somebody says, I get my vitamin A from carrots, that's impossible. You can't get your vitamin A from carrots because there is no vitamin A in carrots. Carrots have something called beta-carotene, which is a precursor for vitamin A, and everybody's body has some ability to convert some beta-carotene into real vitamin A. Some people, it doesn't work at all. They don't convert any. Some people convert 5%, some 10%, some 20%. Nobody converts a lot because we weren't designed by whoever designed us. I don't get into those arguments. I let everybody else. Maybe we're put here by aliens. Whoever it is, whatever it is, we were always eating the organs of animals. Every time animals would be killed, the heart was eaten, the liver was eaten, the kidney was eaten. All those things were eaten because they knew they had other things in them that kept them healthy. Liver is very high in vitamin A. If I ask for a show of hands in my classes where there are 50 people, how many people here have had liver in the last month? Usually no hands go up, or mine might, but nobody else's would. So most people are deficient in vitamin A, and if they run a vitamin A test on you and look at the amount in your blood, those numbers are totally wrong. Because they tested 1,000 people who were all deficient in vitamin A, and said, okay, that's the reference range. Well, yeah, that's the reference range of normal people, but they're all deficient in vitamin A. So if you're in that range, that's not where you want to be. So I want people to be in the very top of that or above it. So I have most people taking a large number, but a small amount of vitamin A. I have most people on like 10,000 units, and we're going to get into that. But you got to be careful when people don't understand that a large number might not be a large amount. So I make a joke out of it. I said, so if somebody came in and handed you a penny and said, if you come back tomorrow, I'm going to give you 1,000% more. That would be a dime. I'm not even going to bother to go back for the dime. It takes me more time. I'd rather be somewhere else. But that's 1,000% more. So you have to know what the unit of measure is. If the unit of measure is a penny, then 10 pennies or 1,000% more still isn't very much. So the net number, 10,000 international units of vitamin A, is a big number, but it's a tiny amount of vitamin A. One single portion of beef liver, lamb liver, chicken liver, turkey liver, whatever. So if somebody said, for my meal tonight, the meat is going to be liver, and you normally have 6 or 7 ounces of beef, so you have 6 or 7 ounces of liver. That portion of liver will give you between 70 and 80,000 units of vitamin A. So 10,000 is very, very low. So I have most people taking that. We'll go over amounts. I have everybody taking extra vitamin C, and I'll show you which ones are my favorites. And vitamin C really doesn't stay in your body very long. That's one of the ones that has to be taken either breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Vitamin C is one of the few nutrients that almost never causes any indigestion. So you can actually take that without a meal if you don't have a lunch. Take one with breakfast, one in the middle of the day with a glass of water, and one with dinner. But we'll go over again the doses that I like to use, and that must be taken at least twice a day, breakfast and dinner, but often more than that. Especially if somebody has an issue like cancer, then it's much, much higher. Vitamin D3 has to get tested. My target for a healthy vitamin D3 level is about 55 or 60 to 80. So if somebody comes back and their number is between about 55 and 60 and 80, then the amount of vitamin D that they're currently taking, wherever they're getting it from, I'm happy with. If it's below that, I am not happy. And we have to bring in some vitamin D. And it doesn't matter what the dose is. Makes no difference. It's sort of like somebody gives you a big new plant, and you start pouring the amount of water in once a week that you've always poured into your plants, but that particular plant has much larger leaves, and it uses up more water. And so you have to put in 3 times more water, because otherwise it wilts. Well, if somebody says, why are you putting in so much water? And your answer is, because otherwise it wilts. But that's too much water. How can it be too much water? If I put in less, it wilts. So we need the vitamin D test, because one person needs to take 2,000 units a day to hold them in that range. The next person needs 3,000, next person needs 4,000, next person needs 5,000. I take 11,000 to hold me in that range. I have one person who has so much inflammation in his body, because D is an anti-inflammatory nutrient, that he has to take 25,000 to hold him there. So when a doctor makes a very, very ignorant statement and says, you're taking too much vitamin D, but your level is right where it belongs, they're wrong. Because if your level is where it belongs, then the amount you're taking is what's holding it there. Also, these are US lab levels. Because in the United States, we use what I have up there, NGML. That's nanograms of vitamin D3 per milliliter of blood. If you went to Canada, which is a metric country, or Europe, which is a metric country, they don't use nanograms per milliliter. They use something called nanomoles per liter. Those are totally different. I mean, it's a different unit of measure. So those numbers would be totally wrong from them. If somebody's listening to this on YouTube when it gets up there, and they're in a metric country, and their blood test doesn't say NGML, it says nanomoles per liter, their range is 149 or 150 to 200. This is a US number. And I have no idea how much you need to take to get you there, but it takes about 3 months worth of taking the same dose before it gets into your cells and sits there level. So you always, anytime you change the amount, because you get your lab test back and it comes back at 40, and you decide you want to be where David Getoff says he wants his patients. And so you start taking a couple thousand or a couple thousand more if you're already taking some, and you take that dose for 3 months or more, and you do it again. And if it still isn't there, boost it up again and do it again. You always wait at least 3 months before testing it again to make sure that it's not still rising. The complete vitamin E complex. Lots of, probably every single multiple vitamin tells you that it contains vitamin E. But there's a lot of different forms of vitamin E. Some of them are totally inactive, some of them are partially inactive, a couple of them aren't even antioxidants. And so there's alpha, beta, delta, and gamma tocopherol, and I want all of them together. The product is called Unique E because it is a rather unique form of vitamin E. So that's the one I have people take, and we'll be going over that. And fish or cod liver oil, my favorite is Carlson brand. And I want my patients to get both EPA, which is an abbreviation for eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, which is an abbreviation for docosahexaenoic acid. at between 800 and 1500 milligrams of each of those two per day. So if you have an omega-3 product that you got at home, and you take a look at it, and it says 2 capsules contain, or 1 capsule contains, or 3 capsules contains, whatever it says, and then it tells you how much, that's the amount in that number of capsules. If, for example, and I'll give an example that's accurate to a bunch of them, if you have one from any brand, and it says 2 soft gels contain 400 milligrams of EPA and 700 milligrams of DHA. Well, I want between 800 and 1500. So if 2 capsules contain that amount, to get to my range, you have to take 4 capsules. So it just lets you know, you figure out how much. Most people are taking way, way, way too little of the fish oils or cod liver oils because they don't understand what the bottle was designed to tell you. They think the bottle was designed to tell you how much you're supposed to take. That is incorrect. The only bottle that is designed to tell you how much you're supposed to take is a prescription drug, where the doctor decided how much he or she wants you to take, and they wrote that down so that the pharmacist would write it on your bottle, even though somebody else getting the same drug might get a different one. But the bottles in the store for nutrients, that's not how much they want you to take. They're just telling you how much is in a tablet, or how much is in 2 tablets, or how much is in 3 capsules. And you might have to take 3 times that many to get the amount your body needs. So you have to know how much you want, and then take a look, and it says 2 capsules contain this, 3 capsules contain that. Oh, okay, well, in order to get what I want, then I need to take twice that, or 3 times that. And for people that go, really? You mean the bottle is not there to give you the dose? I go, let me give you a simple way for you to prove to yourself, real easy, that that's not what the bottle is telling you. Go to any health food store, or some pharmacy, and go to the area where all their vitamin C products are. And find any company, I don't care what the manufacturer is, any company that has the same type of vitamin C, ascorbic acid, magnesium ascorbate, whatever it is, but the same type, in more than 1 different dose, depending on which bottle you grab. So this one says vitamin C 50 milligrams per tablet. This one says vitamin C 250 milligrams per tablet. And this one says vitamin C 500 milligrams per tablet. So to get from 50 to 250, that's 5 times as much. 5 50s make it 250. This one says 500. 10 50s make a 500. So they're very different amounts. Now take a look at the directions. Damn, they're all the same. Every one of those, even though this is 1/10 as much as this, every one says, take 1 tablet once or twice a day or as directed by your healthcare provider. Even though this has 1,000% more than the other one. Because all they're doing is telling you how much is in each tablet. They are not telling you that that is the amount you should take for health. All right, good probiotic will be next. We'll go over probiotics. And then the last of the most important products will be on B12. And actually, as I was waiting for everybody to come in, I decided to add another one. So when we get to the end, this even give you another one in there. All right, so the importance of a probiotic. There's a huge amount of research that's been done just in the last 20 years that now shows that somewhere between 50 and 70% of our immune system is due to the good bacteria, most of which people don't have very many of anymore in their intestines because they took an antibiotic sometime in the last few years and it knocked them all out and they never brought them back because they don't just come back by themselves. They can be out for years. So now that we know that 50% or more of your immune system is there, we really want there to be a whole bunch of good bacteria in your intestines. So we'll go over which ones I like best. Taking 1 dose of any antibiotic can knock out all of the good bacteria for years if it isn't brought back up with good probiotics. Bios is life. Antibiotic is a life killer. Obviously, it's not designed to kill us. It's designed to kill the bacteria we're trying to kill. But anti is against, bios is life. So an antibiotic is to kill the life, and the life it's trying to kill is whatever your infection is. Probiotic is to bring the good ones back in again. So we want to kill the bad guys, we want to bring the good ones back in again. So I'll show you the only ones I like, and they should be taken usually either with 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day, and disregard anything on any bottle of probiotics that says take it on an empty stomach. The research of the probiotic scientists has proven that is not true. You want to take them with meals, and they implant better. So, here's some of my favorites. We've got a whole bunch of things coming up here. I'll just bring them all up and then we'll go over them. All right, so on the left, we've got three different products of vitamin A. The form is all the same. They're all natural source vitamin A. The majority of my patients, I have taking the one on the right, which is a natural vitamin A from Carlson that is made from a combination of fish liver oil and retinol palmitate. Sometimes when I first work with somebody, because their liver is in such bad shape, I have to have them take that one in the middle that you can't get in the health food store because it's a professional brand, because they've done something to the vitamin A to make it not require liver function to process it so it can't overload. So sometimes I have to have them use that first, and then after we do kidney liver support, we can change them over. But most often, the one on the right, which is 10,000 international units of vitamin A, which is a very small amount, and I have people take one of the itty-bitty, teeny-weeny soft gels a day with the meal of their choice, and that just brings their level up slowly. You're welcome to join us. That's staff, obviously, when somebody has an official name tag on. The next bottle over is Unique E, and that's the special form of vitamin E that has alpha, beta, delta, and gamma tocopherol. And remember, I am going to have this entire presentation up on my YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch it and stop it and take any notes you want. The amount of vitamin E I use varies from person to person. It's usually one of those capsules for every 60 to 80 pounds of body weight. So most people take 2 with breakfast at the same meal. That particular thing stays in your body all day. Therefore, we take it all together because it pushes harder and gets a higher level. So the few things that will stay there all day get taken all at once. There aren't too many of them. So that would be, most people take either 2 or 3 of those with one meal. Next one are the fish oils. And we're going to be going over all these different things. We've got slides on them. I just want to show you some pictures. Cod liver oil, which is what I take, a tablespoon of every day. Elite omega-3s, I'll go over why I use that one. And the Med Omega, those are the 3 I use. We'll be going over the reasons. And then those are quite a number of different types, different forms of vitamin D. The one on the extreme right, I use with people that say, I have tried vitamin D over and over again. I keep raising the amount I'm taking, and my blood levels never go up. They're having an absorption problem. And I have a special form that is not available to the public called Numetica Mycelase D. I bring that in, their levels go up. But most people in my office are getting one of the other 4. They're either getting the Carlson D2000 soft gels or the Healthy Origins 2400 or 5000. The only time people have to be careful, and I will tell them that, be a little bit careful, is this bottle is a liquid. And what happens is that particular company makes that liquid in 1,000 units per drop, 2,000 units per drop, 4,000 units per drop. And so if somebody's been taking a specific one, let's say 2,000 per drop, which is the way I carry it, and they run out and they go to the health food store and they just grab the bottle the box that they're familiar with, and they don't look and realize that they just got one which has twice as much per drop. And now they're just taking twice as much as they would be, and all their numbers are going to go wrong. So I always say if you're taking the liquid, make sure that that one says 2,000 IU on it. Make sure you don't get a different one. I had that happen with a patient 4 or 5 years ago. I share her with a doctor in New York, actually in Massachusetts. And she came into my office for her second visit. I hadn't seen her in about 8 months because people that aren't local see me much further apart. They don't want to have to fly in every couple months. And she brought her supplements with her. And I took a look at the vitamin D and I said, how long have you been taking that? She's about 3 months. I said, and you're taking that one instead of the one you showed me when you first came in? Why? Well, the store was out of that one, so I just grabbed a different liquid. So the one that she had originally was 1,000 units per dropper full. A filled dropper is usually 25 to 30 drops. That one was 1,000 units per drop. So she was taking approximately 30 times more D every day. And I said, when was the last time you had a blood draw for a vitamin D test? Oh, yeah, David. The doctor's name is David also. And I know this doctor very well. He is a holistic doctor. He's written a bunch of books. And actually, his name is Dr. Brownstein. And she said, oh, he just drew some blood before I came here. And I said, well, let me prepare you. If he does a vitamin D test, he's going to call you up and say, oh my God, I don't know what you're doing, but stop your vitamin D immediately. She said, and why is that? And I explained that, she came in with 1,000 units per dropper full. Now she's got 1,000 units per drop. So she's taking 30,000 units a day instead of the couple she was taking before. And so she called me when she got back. She said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Dr. Brownstein called me up and said, my God, what do you stop your vitamin D immediately? Is something wrong? And she said, yeah, David Gedoff already explained to me that was going on. So, certain different things, that is not something that happens very often. But D is something that can happen on because of the very different amounts that might be in the different products. So here's a few more, and then we're going to go over each of these separately. So up on the top, we get the D again. The next one, those are all different forms of vitamin C. So on the left top, those are packets of vitamin C from Valimenta lambs. Below that are packets of vitamin C from live-on lambs. There's a bottle there called a liposome C, which is a liquid liposome. Then there's one from Dr. Mercola. Then there's the bottle in the middle with the teal label called ascorbate C. That's the one I have the largest number of patients on. I have more patients taking the ascorbate C. It's called Ultimate Ascorbate from Source Naturals. Fantastic product. They bind the vitamin C to calcium and magnesium and potassium and zinc and all sorts of different things. The minerals help pull it into the body. So the Ultimate Ascorbate C1000 from Source Naturals is a really, really, really good C. Next one over is just bound to magnesium, and it's a powder, magnesium ascorbate. The final one on the bottom right, the Vitality C, is a special powder, which is pretty expensive, which I have some people on. And the jar above it, made by Pure Synergy, is a 100% food extract. So it has very little vitamin C in it because it's just the whole food. The food is something called camu camu. It's a rainforest food that's the highest source of vitamin C that's ever been discovered. But you'd have to take a couple of tablespoons just to get anywhere near 500 units. 500 milligrams. Vitamin C is milligrams. So it doesn't get used very often, but some people want to do that. And I just came back from visiting my best friend in New Jersey. His name is also David. We get too many Davids. How many people here named David? No, wow, no men named David. Okay, good. So to save money, because he's on lots of different supplements, sometimes they'll buy certain things at Costco, and I've taught him different things to look for, because I don't usually do anything with Costco. And he had a Costco 1,000 milligram vitamin C tablet. And I took a look at it, because I've looked at their stuff before and haven't liked them at all. I've had all sorts of garbage in it. This one wasn't that bad. The chewable next to it that maybe his wife takes was full of garbage, because to make it chewable, they have to put in sugar and all sorts of crazy things. But the 1,000 milligram tablet wasn't bad. I'm going to have to see if that's still what they have, because if it is, maybe I'll tell people that's another alternative to save money. But generally, these are the ones I like best, and again, the one I use the most often is that one in the middle. Oops, where are we? Not.
What brand is that again?
Source Naturals. There we go. Yeah, Source Naturals, Ultimate Ascorbate, vitamin C. Then on the bottom are a whole bunch of different probiotics, good bacteria. So on the left, actually the first four are all made by Pharmax. The one on the left are packets, and they're for somebody that just finished being on antibiotics, and they've completely had all their good bacteria wiped out. So the packets in there, we open one of those packets up, put it in some water, mix it up, and they drink that like every other day for 14 days. There's 7 packets in there, and it brings in a massive amount. I have a couple of people that every time they ever have to go on an antibiotic, they are horrendously constipated for the next 6 months. Unless we do this, in which case we make the constipation go right away because we repopulate everything. But the research shows that if you're going to go on an antibiotic, a different time of day than when you take the antibiotic, you should be on a probiotic starting the day you go on the antibiotic, but continuing 3 or 4 months afterwards. And then we have less side effects from the antibiotic because we kill bad and good and bring back good. We kill bad and good and bring back good. But Pharmax, which is the blue labels, those are the ones that I like best. And the one that I use the most often is Ultimate Ascorbate, and that's the first glass bottle. So you got a big plastic one, then the largest glass bottle is called HLC High Potency. And that's the name of the product, HLC High Potency. Oops, let's go back there for a second. The others are just specialty things that I use at different times. There's one that's neonate, which is for children that are still breastfeeding and have never had any food except breast milk. A bunch of different things, and actually the one second to the right I have to pull out because that company decided she was going to retire, so it doesn't exist anymore. So that one right there in the middle, Florosource, she has closed her doors. I said, why don't you sell your company to somebody? She said, I only found one person that was interested, and he was telling me all the things he was going to do to save money and make the product cheaper so he could make more money. And she said, then you're not getting my company, and she closed her doors. She said, I will not have my label on something when it isn't as good as it used to be. All right, so why don't doctors test for nutrients? And that's sad, because I really wish they were. Doctors aren't taught to help the body heal. They're taught to kill infections, repair bones, remove organs, since they're unable to help them heal. So they have no knowledge of how these nutrients can help us heal because that's not what they're being taught. Sad, but it's true. Most doctors are not open-minded. Most doctors know they know everything, which of course is a very bad way to be in any occupation, because if you know everything, you can't learn. How are you going to find out what you were wrong about if you knew you were right even when you're wrong? It doesn't work. So I know I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything. It's too much fun to learn. And I always announce in my classes, if somebody can teach me something that I was wrong at, why do I think that's terrific? And usually somebody will raise their hand because you learn something new. Exactly. So I'm always happy to be taught wrong. It doesn't happen too often. I've been doing this for 30 years, but I'm always happy because then I've learned something new. But they are not taught anything about nutrition, and it's sad. It would be really, really nice if they were. So, to suppress symptoms without healing their causes is the purpose of a drug. Somebody goes into the doctor, I don't feel good. I have a pain here. I have a pain here. Fine, we will prescribe you a painkiller. But how about what caused the pain? I have no idea what caused the pain, but we can make it go away. Well, that's what doctors are taught, and I understand that that's what they're taught. However, I don't want to treat symptoms. I want to treat causes. If you treat a cause, then the symptom goes away by itself as the body heals, and that's much, much better. If you do that, you don't end up on multiple drugs. I think the last study I saw for the U.S. said that by the time somebody is 50, the average adult is on 3 pharmaceutical prescriptions. By the time they're 60, they're on 4 to 5. And by the time they're 70 or over, they're on between 6 and 8. Well, I'm going to be 68 in a couple of months. I'm on 0. I have never been on any, long term that you got to take this every day or that every day, either over the counter or prescription, because I am healing the issues, and that's the idea. So, medical lab tests are only, like I said earlier, normal ranges, and normal is not the same as healthy. And it would be nice if somebody would do all that and figure out exactly what the healthy ranges are. There are people that have done that. I have some of their books. I've gone to their lectures. People that have analyzed, 5,000 and 10,000 lab reports over different, many, many years to see what something moves into as they heal something. But the doctors aren't given any of that. The doctors are just, look at the normal range that's on there, and if your patient is out of that normal range, you want to see why. Although they often don't even do that, which I honestly haven't figured out. The number of times that a patient comes in my office and they've been told, if you have any labs run, obviously if I'm going to get the labs, I'm going to come to me, but if your doctor runs any labs, please get copies and bring them to me. If you're in New York or New Jersey, the doctor would say, you're not a doctor, you can't have those labs. And the patient would say, but they're my labs. The doctor would say, they're not really your labs, they're labs I ran on you. That's because our regulations in this country are a little crappy. Luckily, the state of California has a totally different regulation. In the state of California, if you have a doctor run a lab test on you, you own the lab. That's your lab test. They are required by law to give you a copy. Now, they don't all know that. But if you tell them that, they can look it up. So every once in a while, I get a patient that says, no, my doctor said they're not going to give me a copy of the test. Fine. You got your doctor's phone number with you? Yeah. Don't get mad at me. No. Just give me his phone number. I call up the office. You rarely get the doctor on the phone. Of course, you get a receptionist or a nurse or whatever. I go, hi. This is David Getoff. I'm a nutrition professional in El Cajon. You have a patient named, and I gave her name. And apparently your doctor doesn't understand California law. Maybe he practiced somewhere else before. She asked for a copy of her labs because I want to see them. And the doctor said you're not entitled to a set. California law requires the doctor to give her a copy of that set. So he's in violation of California law. I have no intention of reporting him. I don't like to get people in trouble. But would you please fax a set of those labs to so-and-so? And they either fax them out to me immediately, or she has to go in and sign a release form. That's fine. They can charge a couple dollars if it's like 25 pages, but they're your labs. But again, they don't all know that. Most of them will hand you a set. It's normal, as I said earlier, to die of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and lately Alzheimer's has been added to that. And therefore, I don't want to be normal. So don't give me normal ranges, don't give me normal everything. Give me healthy, and they just don't know what those are. Okay. The last study that they did, and this varies by about 10 or 15,000, but it doesn't vary a lot, showed 160,000 Americans die each year from correctly prescribed prescription drugs. It's the third leading cause of death, is correctly prescribed prescription drugs. I'm not talking about all the interactions that happen that nobody should have prescribed that drug if they knew the person was on this. I'm talking about the things that everything was done correctly and it caused a death. And that's not a nutrition number. That's a number published in things like the Journal of the American Medical Association, the British Medical Journal, the Lancet. That's a very, very well-respected number. It's very sad. If you want to learn more about that, I would send you to my website and you could probably just put the word death into my search box. Because I bet that title of that article, I bet that's the only place on my site that a title has death in it. But otherwise you could put in death by medicine. I called up one of the 3 PhDs and 4 MDs that wrote that article, and I said, do I have permission to put your entire article on my website? And they said, sure, absolutely. So that goes over a lot more than just 160,000. They actually come up with a number of 300 and something thousand, because they're not only talking about correctly prescribed prescription drugs, they're talking about all the ways in which medicine causes death to people that wouldn't have otherwise died. I'm not saying we shouldn't have doctors, and if I break a leg, I'm glad I'm in a country that has that. But that's emergency medicine. That's not chronic disease that they don't know how to do anything except make the symptoms feel better to us. So dying of old age is not normal. It's become rare, and that's very sad. That's what I want to die of. Preferably at as much over 100 as I can get with all my faculties. Therefore, most lab ranges for nutrients are wrong. So most nutrients, but not iron, are best if they're in the top 20 or so percent of their range, or up to 10 or 15% over. That's true for nutrients. Not iron, because iron we can have too much of. Most other nutrients, if you were 10 or 15 or 20% above the reference range, your body would say, that's thanks, it's okay, you could go a little higher if you want, because it'll use it and it won't cause you any issues. That's because the people that were tested in order to develop those ranges so they could figure them out. This wasn't done in a computer. It wasn't like, let's determine how much people need. They wouldn't even know how to program it. That was done by taking a whole bunch of people that didn't have a disease, that weren't on any medication, and take a look at their blood values. And they put them all together, and they say, well, those are way low and those are way high, so we'll bring them in a little bit. This is normal values. And that's what the doctor looks at. The doctor sees your value and the normal range, which has nothing to do with health, sadly. So there are specialty labs. Specialty labs are the ones that only the holistic doctors really even know exist. And one test is called the cardio ion panel. That is by far my favorite test. It is run by Genova Diagnostics. And what they put on that test is almost amazing. Because they test all your vitamins, and they test all your antioxidants, and they test all your minerals, and they test all your trace minerals, and they test your fats and fatty acids, and they test your amino acids. You get to look at all this stuff. And you find out, wow, I'm taking a bunch of supplements, I'm eating pretty well, but my body obviously needs a lot more of those 3 because they're way too low. It's got lots of this and lots of this, and that one's higher than it needs to be, but it's not a problem. I've looked at a lot of companies that have tried to copy the cardio ion panel. None of them are as good. So anytime somebody says, well, my doctor orders SpectraCell, and my doctor orders NutriVal, I go, well, the next time we're getting this one. And very often the doctor looks at it and goes, wow, that's a much better test. Because they haven't looked at it. So that's a phenomenal test. It is not cheap. Wholesale cost on that test is about $800. But if you were to take all of the different things it's testing for and go to 12 different labs, and this one does these minerals, and this one does those trace minerals, this one does it would end up costing about $3,000 or $4,000. So if I'm working with somebody, and we've been working together for a couple of years, and most of their problems are getting better and better and everything, but something that I would have thought would have improved a lot hasn't, I might recommend that test. It doesn't happen very often, because if you really know what you're doing, you don't often need those tests. But, if there's something I want to look at, that's one of the ones I'll look at. So, what doses do I often use with people? All right, natural vitamin A, not beta-carotene. I usually have people getting somewhere between 10 and 15,000 per day, but they just changed them to RAE, which is retinol activity equivalent units, in order to confuse the heck out of everybody. And I'm hoping that the FDA will allow the manufacturers to put both numbers on their labels, so that the old number that we're used to can stay there while they put on the new ones. I'm hoping. We'll see what happens over the next 6 months as I bring things in. Yes?
What is the, when you see an MCG measurement, how is that equivalent?
MCG is micrograms,
Yeah.
and micrograms converts to international units differently for every nutrient. So there isn't any set conversion. So like if you have MCG for vitamin A, you're going to have to go online and put in vitamin A MCG 2IU, and find a conversion and hope they got it right. So it's a problem. Now pretty soon they're all going to have to be in retinol activity equivalents, and hopefully the companies online will get that. But it's interesting because there are many different forms of vitamin A. And the FDA has decided they all have different retinol activity units. So this one, you convert this way. This one you convert that way. That one you convert this way. Beta-carotene shouldn't even have any retinol equivalent units because it has no retinol in it. But yeah, I have no idea why they did this. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's going to confuse a hell of a lot of people. So you have to find a website that will make the conversions for you. Vitamin C, I generally use a bare minimum of 500 milligrams 3 times a day. There really isn't any time that I would have anybody take less than that amount. I often have people take 1,000 twice a day, which is already higher, because that would be 1,500. I often have people take 1,000 3 times a day. If somebody's coming to me with an immune problem or with some form of cancer, they're going to be on at least 6,000 a day. And I have people on higher doses than that. But the minimum I have anybody on is 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And Linus Pauling did a lot of work on vitamin C. And people will often, I don't understand this, I really don't. I guess it's sort of like the medical profession almost is trying to steer us away from healing conditions. It doesn't make sense to me. Because when Linus Pauling did his original research, finding that he extended the lives of cancer patients multiple years with high-dose vitamin C, when that kind of stuff gets done, other people try to duplicate the research to see is this really true. But none of them duplicated the research. So if he had somebody on 12,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, they decided to use 5,000, and it didn't work. It didn't do the same. It's not the same study. So if you're trying to duplicate and see whether what somebody got, you would also get those results, you have to make sure you do exactly what they did. And so when someone says, oh, Linus Pauling's research was all nonsense, it's been disproven. No, it's never been disproven. Nobody ever proved anything that he said about his high-dose vitamin C isn't correct. And his books are still out there. So vitamin C is a fantastic substance. There's a man named Andrew Saul, S-A-U-L, I believe, who talks a lot about vitamin C. If you go to my website, once again, and in the search box up on the top right, just put in vitamin space C. It will bring up all of the things I've got on my site about vitamin C. There's a video, there's a couple of audio lectures. I'll listen to them. They're fascinating. All right, vitamin D3. Vitamin D3, as I said earlier, has to be tested for. If you don't test, you have no idea whether your level is where you need it to be. Because it's not a certain amount, it's where your level is. Yes?
So you can overdose on it.
It is possible to overdose on vitamin D3, but it's extremely difficult because they don't generally find any problems with any kind of overdose symptoms on vitamin D3 until people's blood levels, which I want between 55 and 80, get to over 150. So it's possible if somebody started taking massive amounts, I've seen it in one person in 30 years. He was taking ridiculous amounts. I didn't put him on them, but it's very, very hard. But the main issue is that you can't know whether you're in the right place, because we now have dozens and dozens of research studies done on how much making the proper amount of vitamin D3 level in your body, how much that will reduce your risks of cancer, of multiple sclerosis, of stress fractures, of pancreatic cancer, of all sorts of different things. And in order to have your level at a high enough place that we have the lowest risk we can get of all the things that have been studied, your number has to be above 55. And that's the reason I choose 55 to 80, because that's well below anything that could hurt you. Yes?
What about, I've heard you need to take it with K.
The idea of having to take vitamin D3 with K, or taking vitamin D3 with A, is sort of moot. It's not that you have to. Vitamin D is one of the vitamins that is essential for building bone. And there are more than one or two vitamins that are essential for building bone. It's about 6. So if you give somebody vitamin D and you haven't checked their vitamin A levels and their vitamin K levels, those levels could conceivably drop down even lower, because the body says, oh, okay, I've got enough vitamin D to do some more things. I need some K and some of the A to do that. So it uses some of those, and those levels go down. And so it's worthwhile testing all of them, but it's fairly easy in many people that are eating a lot of dark green leafy vegetables to have a vitamin K level that's decent, whereas it's impossible to have a vitamin D3 level that's decent, because they found 98% of the public doesn't have a healthy level of vitamin D. So it depends on the individual. I do have a number of people on some K.
One more question. How about getting 20 minutes of sunshine a day? Does that affect the vitamin D?
Does sunshine affect vitamin D?
Without sunscreen.
Right. Well, first of all, you would have to have zero sunscreen, because even an SPF 4 prevents any vitamin D from being made.
No sunscreen.
So it has to be without sunscreen. We were originally put on this planet, again, I don't get into how. We had no clothing, and we were outdoors all the time. So people were getting hours of sun all over your entire body. And 20 minutes of sun, unless you are buck naked, 10 minutes on each side like you're cooking yourself, and unless you're outside between 11 and 1, which is when the body can make vitamin D, you won't be able to make enough to matter. So when they've done the studies on that, to look at that exact question, they found that with the exception of people that were on ships without their shirt, working outdoors all the time without sunscreen because they developed a nice tan, and the very few lifeguards that didn't want to put all the toxic sunscreens on and also were out there in bikinis or bathing suits with nothing, they couldn't find anybody whose vitamin D level was as high as it should be. So all the people that I have in my practice, when they get a bunch of sun, their D level goes up so little, I don't have them stop the D that they're already on. So will it make some? A little bit, but not enough to matter. So we have to do the vitamin D3 tests. Now you can order the tests on yourself, and they're fairly reasonable. Grassrootshealth.net is a website in which it can say, you get up there and you click on order blood tests, or order vitamin D tests. And it's not expensive. It's, I think, $55 or something. And the kit gets sent to you, and it's what's called a blood spot kit. That means you don't have to go in to get your veins or arteries pricked. It comes with something that you make a little tiny prick in the side of your finger, and the directions are all in there, and you put a couple drops of blood into a little circle on a blotter paper, and you let it dry, and you put your name on it, and it gets mailed into them, and then they email you back either your numbers, or they give you a website to go on and take a look at it. So if your doctor says, I did your blood test the last time you were here, you were 38, that's totally fine, that's in range, I'm not going to order it again. And you want it to be healthy, not in range. In range isn't good enough. You want it above 55, and they won't do it. So, after you've seen you're too low, you start taking maybe, 4,000 a day, and you take 4,000 a day for 3 months, or 4 months, but at least 3. And then you order the test kit in, you send it in, you take a look. It comes back that you're now between 55 and 80. Okay, however much you're taking, stay on it. That's your dose. Or the 38 has gone to 48, and you're still not there. All right, well, the 4,000 didn't make me there. All right, let's add 2 more thousand. Let's make it 6,000. Try that for 3 months. Now I'm between 55 and 80. Then that's your dose. And it's really strange because you can't get through medical school if you're stupid. I think we can all agree on that. And that's IQ. You've got to have a decent IQ. You can't have an average IQ of 100 to get through medical school. So how people can get through medical school and still be so ignorant of standard common logic. So I have people that come back to my office and they go, my doctor wanted to see what supplements you put me on. I don't care. I usually tell them, unless the doctor's got a degree in clinical nutrition, don't tell them, and don't ask me what doses of your drugs to take, because that's not my thing. But they wanted to see it. Okay, fine. And when they saw I was taking 5,000 units of vitamin D, they said, "Stop that. That's way too much." I said, "Did you show him the vitamin D test that we finally got him to run that says that you're still too low? Doesn't matter. It's too much." No, it doesn't work that way. The amount you're taking has no relevance at all. The only thing that matters is your blood level. And if your blood level is too low, then the amount you're taking isn't adequate. And I don't understand how somebody cannot see that. If somebody's blood test comes back and they're right in the range they should be, don't tell them to change the dose they're taking of something. Or if it's too low, tell them to up it. The number that you're taking is not what matters. The result of what your body is telling you it's using it for matters. But I get to see this far too often. Yeah?
What about vitamin D being a hormone rather than the vitamin?
That's what they have said. They have said that cholecalciferol, which is the actual name of the chemical of vitamin D3, that if it was determined today, if they first discovered it today and analyzed it to see what it does and how it works, they would probably say, this is not a vitamin, this is a steroid-like hormone. Steroids are very strong anti-inflammatories. So I have some people that when we get their vitamin D levels up, not everybody, I'm not saying that this is, but I've seen it, their general pain that they've been taking painkillers for years, dropped by 50%. I had one person who, her fibromyalgia vanished. She'd had it for years. She was on all sorts of drugs. We got her vitamin D level up to about 65, which is, place I'd want it, 65, 75, 80, whatever. And her fibromyalgia went away. Now, I'm assuming that would be a very small number of people. If we took 1,000 people with fibromyalgia, ran all their vitamin D levels, and got them all up to, let's say, 65 or 70, possibly many of their pain levels would go down because it is a steroid-like hormone, which is an anti-inflammatory. I don't know how many would find their fibromyalgia is gone. But yes, it acts like a steroid-like hormone. It's a strong anti-inflammatory. And anti-inflammatories are good, especially the ones that we require. So somebody will take turmeric, the spice, or the substance in turmeric that they found to be active, which are curcuminoids. And they're taking it because they've been told it's an anti-inflammatory. And when they take it, sometimes they can reduce their painkillers. Well, but that's a substance that only grows in a small part of the planet Earth. So it can't have anything in it that's required for health. It's impossible, because we've had healthy people everywhere. You can't find something that's only in one little part of the planet Earth and have something that's super important. But if you are not getting enough of certain nutrients that are also anti-inflammatory, like vitamin D, if your antioxidant level is too low, if the foods you're eating are wrong, if your toxic load is too high, then taking the turmeric, might make a difference. But once I get people straightened out so all their nutrients are where they're supposed to be, when they stop their turmeric, they don't notice any issue getting worse, because now they're getting all of the anti-inflammatory effects from the things they're supposed to. So yes, because it is sort of a steroid-like hormone, that's what they say it would be today, that's another really good reason to make sure your level is up where it belongs. And by the way, Grassroots Health has just added, just in the last 6 months, some other blood spot tests there. You can even test your fatty acid levels of like anti-inflammatory omega-3s. So maybe you've been taking a certain amount of somebody's fish oil or cod liver oil for the last couple of years. And do I really need to double it or triple it like Gadoff just said in this lecture? Well, you could test it and see where they find you to be in the range. And if you're not taking enough, then they'll show you that and you should be higher. So they're not only doing vitamin D testing there, which is nice. MDs still don't seem to realize that research has proven that your numbers should be between 55 and 80. And, like I said, metric countries are different. So they keep on, you don't need any vitamin D. You're at 32. That's not the number that's going to reduce your risk as many things as we can do it. It takes 90 days of taking a set amount of D3, I've said this 2 or 3 times, to have your numbers level off. So you make sure you're taking the new amount for 90 days before you test it again. Still too low, increase a little, 90 days or more, test it again. Very, very simple. The dose is irrelevant, just your body's blood test numbers. That's what we're looking for. Vitamin E complex, alpha, beta, delta, gamma, tocopherols, in a proper, near natural ratio, similar to the way they would be if they were in a food. And we had a picture of that product before. It's called Unique E tocopherols. As I mentioned when we had the photo up, I dose it with my patients at 1 capsule per each 60 to 80 pounds of their body weight taken at the same meal together. So I weigh about 175 to 180, and that would be 3 capsules once a day. So I took 3 capsules with my smoothie this morning. Fish oils. As shown on that photograph we had of all the fish oils, I found Carlson Labs to produce the best ones of all the ones I've checked. I have the vast majority of my patients on the lemon-flavored liquid cod liver oil, which stays in the refrigerator. And I generally have people on a tablespoon a day because I set it as 1 teaspoon, which is 1/3 of a tablespoon, 1 teaspoon per 40 to 60 pounds of body weight. That's different than the Unique E, which is 60 to 80 pounds. That's why it's all written down, and you'll be able to get all this online and copy it down if you want. So 1 measuring teaspoon, not your teaspoon, I don't know how big that is, per 40 to 60 pounds of body weight. So 3 times 40 is 120, 3 times 60 is 180. So a tablespoon would be for a 120 to 180 pound person. The majority of my patients are in that range, 120 to 180. So the majority are taking 1 tablespoon a day. You'd have to take way too much for it to be any problem. So if somebody's not quite in that exact range, I don't have them change it, just take a tablespoon. But if somebody weighs 240 pounds, that's not enough. I'll have them take 3 teaspoons plus another teaspoon because they need the extra. So again, this is not exact. If they weigh 110, I'm not going to say take less. If they weigh 185 or 190, I'll probably say, yeah, a tablespoon is fine. But we get up to like 240, okay, that's not enough anymore. We need to add another teaspoon. Yes?
What about salmon?
What about salmon?
Does it have adequate levels in it?
If you are getting wild-caught salmon, because farm-raised has none, if you're getting wild-caught salmon and you eat somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 ounces 7 days a week, you'll probably be close to that amount. I don't know anybody that eats an 8-ounce piece of wild-caught salmon 7 days a week. So yes, there is decent amount of omega-3s in salmon, but nobody eats the amount that they would need. If all of the beef that you eat is 100% from the time it's born until the time it dies, grazing on grass, and that is called grass-fed birth to death. The other way it's called is grass-fed and grass-finished. Has to be both, grass-fed and grass-finished, or grass-fed birth to death. Then that beef has between 400 and 500% more omega-3s than the grain-fed beef that everybody's eating. So if people are eating grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, decent amount of salmon, and pretty much every day they're having one of these high things, they might be high enough. It's possible. Depends on the amount of pollution in their area, because a lot of people have so much inflammation that they need more anti-inflammatory omega-3s than we could get in food. But very few people are having 8 to 10 ounce piece of grass-fed, grass-finished beef one day, 8 to 10 ounce piece of grass-fed, grass-finished lamb the next day. Then they're having some really properly raised eggs, 5 or 6 eggs, that day. Then they're having a big piece of salmon. So I've never found anybody whose omega-3s aren't low and then I have to bring them up. Yeah?
Wild-caught sardines.
Wild-caught sardines are a very good source of omega-3s. And pretty much all of the sardines that we get in the cans are wild-caught. They come from different parts of the planet and they're treated differently. Wild Planet, which you can now get at Costco sometimes, is one of the good ones. And there are a couple of others that are good. But you want to make sure that they are wild, although I don't think I've seen a non-wild caught sardine. So yes, sardines are an excellent source of omega-3s. It's also a fantastic emergency food. Hopefully we're never going to have any of the earthquakes that we get to see in movies, where all sorts of stuff, goes down and we have all sorts of different problems, which of course they've had, north, but we've never had in San Diego. But that's one of the things I keep as an emergency food, because canned foods have a very extended shelf life. So if you bought, let's say, enough canned sardines, and let's even say a good one like Wild Planet brand, if you bought enough canned sardines for the number of people that you have, in your family, to get enough adequate protein every day for, let's say, a month, that alone would be perfect. You might get a little sick of eating sardines, but that would be a very good form of animal protein to be eating. And I do. I'll eat sardines. I'll open up a couple cans of sardines in extra virgin olive oil. I usually get the ones, I'm a little bit more picky than some people. You might figure that out because of my knowledge level. But I might get the Wild Planet sardines in water, because the olive oil that they would have in their ones that were olive oil isn't as good quality as the olive oil I want in there. So I get the ones in oil, in water, drain off the water, put a couple cans in, add my olive oil. I use Bariani, but there are other really, really good ones. And then I just add some mayonnaise that I just made, and a whole bunch of different seasonings and some fresh dill and everything. I'll probably put in some very low sugar pasta sauce, because I like the tomato sauce in there. Mix that all up, and that could be dinner if I was in a hurry. But yeah, sardines is very healthy. I have nothing bad to say about good quality sardines. All right, the open bottle of fish oil must be in the refrigerator. And sometimes I use capsules. Usually I use the liquid, and the reason is because fish oil capsules, because of the amount we try and take as a dose, they're big hunker capsules. They're the capsules that go, really? You want me to swallow those? And I have people that go, yeah, I've been taking the capsules. Now, I hate the fact that it's 2 a day. And then they bring me their bottle because it's required. I have to seal your supplements the first time. And I take a look at the amount of EPA and DHA that's in your capsules. And I go, if you want to keep taking this instead of taking the liquid, then you're going to have to change from 2 capsules a day to 11 capsules a day, or to 10 capsules a day, because they don't have enough of what I need in them. And then they go, I think maybe I'll switch over to the liquid. It's a little easier, even if I have to taste it. And the lemon-flavored Carlson is not that bad. But most of the capsules on the market is 8 to 12 of those huge gel caps to equal the quantity I want. Again, it says on the bottle, 2 gel caps contain, or 3 gel caps contain. That's not telling you how much to take. That's just telling you how much is in 2 or 3 gel caps to let you know. So you can figure out how many you need to get what you're trying to do. So I use the concentrate that Carlson calls Elite Omega-3 Gems. Actually, I put gels up there. It says it's actually gems on the label. Elite Omega-3 Gems. And that's the one which they have concentrated. And they've concentrated it enough that one of those gems is about equal to a teaspoon in the amount of EPA and DHA. So if somebody's taking 3 teaspoons a day, otherwise known as tablespoon, they could take 3 Elite Omega-3 Gems. If they weigh more than that and they're taking extra, they could take 4. But most of the other non-concentrated ones, they would need 8 to 12, which nobody wants to take. So I sometimes use those. I take them out of town. So I just got back. I've been in New Jersey for the last 10 days. I was lecturing at the American College of Integrative Medicine and Dentistry. They bring me in for every new class of holistic dentists to teach them diet, nutritional supplements, and anything having to do with nutrition in general. So I'm there, lecturing to them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm not going to bring an open bottle of something that needs refrigeration, so I count out 3 of those per day, and those go into what I take with me. This time, I could have, if I wanted to, only done that for 3 days, because after the 3rd day, my best friend picked me up, and I stayed at his house for the next 6 days, and he's taking the Carlson in the refrigerator. I could have just taken his. But I just counted out the amount I need. So when I travel, I use those. Otherwise, when I'm home, I use the liquid. It's easier. So with that product, 1 gel cap is about equal to a teaspoon. So 3 per day is often adequate, and they don't require refrigeration because you don't have to worry about oxygen touching the oil because it's already sealed in the gel cap. Yes?
Where do you buy your vitamins? Where's economically the best
That's a very good question. Well, obviously, where do I buy my vitamins? I buy them all directly from the manufacturer, 100 or 120, 140 bottles at a time. But these days, if people are trying to save money, which I understand, and the health food store, and I always have a problem with this because I don't want the health food stores to go out of business, because you can't ship at a reasonable price fresh organic broccoli, fresh organic cauliflower, fresh grass-fed beef. The stuff has to be, next day aired with ice and everything. And so if all people that purchase, let's say supplements, that's a good example. If all people purchasing supplements started buying them all online, and the health food stores were no longer making any money selling supplements, they were only selling perishables, things that had to be refrigerated, then either of two things would happen. They'd either all go out of business, or they would triple the price of all of our food to be able to make up for what they don't get from the supplements. So I don't promote the web places. However, the thing you have to know about buying stuff on the web is that a number of years ago, and I happened to meet the FDA investigator that was involved in this is how I found out about it. A number of years ago, many people had called in the Food and Drug Administration. And then I'll tell you the companies I like best and answer your question. Many people had called in and said, is there any problem? Are people selling stuff that isn't what it's supposed to be? Because I bought, and I'll just make one up because there are a bunch of different ones. I bought something for my joints, and it really helped a lot. And when I took that particular product, I noticed that I could drop down my painkiller a little because it helped the joints. Maybe it was glucosamine or chondroitin or hyaluronic acid. And then to save money, I decided, well, instead of getting it from my health food store, let me go get it online. And I bought it online, and I took the stuff online, and all the problems came back. And I went, oh, that's weird. I went to the health food store and bought theirs. Bottles looked the same. Labels looked the same. They had tamper-proof seals on them. The capsules looked the same. The tablets looked the same. When I took the one from the health food store, the problem went away again. They got so many of those types of reports to the Food and Drug Administration that the FDA decided to do a study of online supplements to see what was going on. And so they ordered a number of different products, probably the type that they had had reports on from people calling in and having this problem. And they ordered them from a whole bunch of different places online. The only two places that the report showed that they found lots of counterfeit products were Amazon and eBay. And the reason is because if you buy something from Swanson Vitamins online, if you buy it from GNC online, if you buy it from iHerb, if you buy it from VitaCost, those are stores which buy their products direct from manufacturer, as your health food store does, as I do, and then they sell it and ship it to you. When you buy from Amazon or eBay, you're actually buying through Amazon or eBay. So in other words, there are thousands and thousands of people that sell their products through Amazon, that sell their products through eBay, and so you don't really know where it came from. And so all of the counterfeits they found, and I don't remember how many it was, were all from eBay and Amazon. And so I tell people, if you'd like to read the article that was written by that FDA investigator who then retired and is now a holistic health person, he gave me a copy of the article to put on my website. So the word counterfeit is only in one place on my entire website, his article. So if you go again to my search box and type in counterfeit, it'll bring up his article and you can read it. So I tell people, I use Amazon for all sorts of things. I use eBay for things. I never use them for supplements because of that. And I'm not saying they're all counterfeit. Absolutely not. There are some that are totally fine. But that's where they found the counterfeits, on those two. So if you want the places that have been around for a long time that seem to be run very well, that would be VitaCost, V-I-T-A, VitaCost, and I, just the letter I, herb, H-E-R-B. And again, I don't promote them because they are destroying my industry, because then the health food stores don't get their money. But I understand a lot of people can't afford to take the vitamins. I would rather they get the discounted vitamins from the places that just have a bunch of really low-level people making almost no money, filling boxes, and they don't have cashiers, and they don't have all the big stores and everything. They don't have all the advertising, and that's the reason they can do that. So I don't like the idea, but if you're going to do it, I would just say don't buy them from Amazon and eBay because we don't know. I would pick VitaCost and iHerb. Long answer to a short question. I put a number of patients, it's actually a pretty small number, on 1 teaspoon of a fairly expensive product called Med Omega, sort of like a medical grade omega-3. That was the last one in the picture. The picture had Carlson's liquid cod liver oil that I had a lot of people on. Then the center one was the Elite Omega-3 Gems, and the smaller bottle on the right was Med Omega. That is a very concentrated liquid as opposed to a very concentrated soft gel, so that 1 teaspoon has the amount of EPA and DHA that a tablespoon of the other has. So if I have a young kid, which of course has nothing to do with body weight, because you can have a 12-year-old now that's so overweight they weigh 160 pounds, and we don't treat age. We never treat age. You're treating body weight. If you have somebody that's 150 pounds and they're 90, and somebody that's 150 pounds and they're 12, same number of cells. The dosage is going to be the same. I don't care what their age. So we have somebody and they, it's horrible, I can't take that. So if we bring it down from a tablespoon to a teaspoon, we can sometimes get it into them. So I have to use the medical grade that's much more concentrated. Otherwise I don't, because it's so much more expensive, but there's nothing wrong with it. So some people are on a teaspoon of the more concentrated Med Omega, but not too many. So last is extra B12. B12 is best known for energy, supports the nervous system, and high doses can sometimes be miraculous with certain asthma patients. I've also had a couple of chemically sensitive patients where they take high doses and they feel much, much better. And the high dose is pretty high. So like with an asthmatic, I think it was Dr. Jonathan Wright that wrote an article on that a couple of years ago. He said you take an asthma patient and you put them on maybe 5 milligrams a day of B12, which is a gigantic amount, and sometimes even twice that, and they go, my asthma feels good. By day number 5 or 8 or 10 or 12, or sometimes it takes 2 or 3 weeks, my asthma is a lot better. You can't hurt them with the B12. So if that works, then we do that. But I rarely need that much. So the B12 products that I use, the lozenge is a 2,000 lozenge, so it's 2 milligrams of B12, and they're called B12 2000. And I usually have people take one of those and just let it slowly dissolve in their mouth every day for the first bottle, unless they've been on shots before, in which case I don't have to do that slowly. I can do it much more fast. But first bottle is 60 tablets. After that, we've now got their level right up where I need it, where they need it. I don't need it there. I've already got my B12. And then they can just take 1 a week to hold it there. And it's not going to hurt them. I just don't want to waste anybody's money. So if 1 a week will hold them there, I have them take 1 a week. If they say, yeah, after about 3 months at 1 a week, I felt like I needed B12. Okay, we'll do it 1 a day for a week or 2 to bring it up, and we'll go to 2 a week. But I remember a medical seminar I was at with Jonathan Wright, who is probably the single most knowledgeable nutritionally oriented physician in the world. He was running for many, many years a 1 day, then 2 day, then 3 day, then 4 day seminar called Nutritional Therapies in a Medical Practice. And I took it every time he ran it, many, many times in a row. Fantastic man. I consider him one of my most important mentors, Dr. Jonathan Wright. And he's got a newsletter called Green Medicine. And it's available through the Alliance for Natural Health. So if you're one of these people who likes medical newsletters to read stuff, which is designed for the public, it's not made for doctors, go to ANH, which stands for Alliance for Natural Health, ANH-USA, ANH-USA.org, and you'll be on the Alliance for Natural Health website, and just go find where it says Green Medicine or Green Medicine Newsletter, and you can subscribe. I don't know what it's currently costing. That's usually $40 a year. You can get it just digital, or you can get it digital and print. I always like it in print. But I remember one of the doctors at one of his conferences, one of his seminars, asked him, can I overdose somebody in B12? I mean, I've got people that say they feel so much better on much higher doses, and I don't want to overdose them. And his answer was so strange that I will never, ever forget his answer. He said, you could eat yourself out of a room full of B12 tablets to get to the door and not hurt yourself. It's a very peculiar way of saying don't worry about it. So if somebody says, I think I feel better when I continue to take them every day instead of dropping down to 1 week, fine. It's just a little bit more money. B12 is terrific. Generally, in the B vitamins, the only way you can cause a problem is if somebody is not getting a good multi and they're taking a huge amount of some kind of B. So if somebody, because of arthritis or carpal tunnel, for example, which is one of the things that B6 can be helpful for, is taking a couple 100 milligrams of B6, and they're not getting a good multi. So they're getting almost no B1, B2, B3, but a whole huge amount of B6. That sometimes can cause a problem. Whereas as long as they're getting 25 or 30 milligrams or more of the other Bs, the 200 milligrams of B6 won't cause a problem. It won't totally skew things horribly. Yes?
Doctor had told me, because I had neuropathy, I
Yep.
still have it, that B6 is an irritant.
B6 will cause, I shouldn't say will, because that's wrong. B6 has caused neuropathy in a teeny tiny number of people that are on super high doses of 200 milligrams or more a day, usually for carpal tunnel. And so in those people, they cut it down and the neuropathy immediately went away within a week, so they knew it was causing it. It came back if they took it again. So we know it can do that, almost never. And the thing that gets me upset is, again, I know doctors are not stupid. You can't get through medical school if you're stupid. But if somebody has you stop a substance that is a nutrient that is helpful to us because they think it may be causing a problem, that's fine, okay. If that problem doesn't go away, it wasn't that substance, tell the patient to bring it back. And they don't do that. So if somebody says, well, your neuropathy might be caused by the B6, let's stop the B6. Okay, we stop the B6, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it never goes away, that wasn't the issue, or it would have resolved. It's not like a drug where it could hurt you so much that because that drug caused this, it's never going to go away. So I rarely ever worry about that at all, but I would make sure somebody's on a good multi.
Thank you.
All right, so I either use the form of B12 called methylcobalamin or the form called hydroxycobalamin, because the standard form that most doctors use, which is called cyanocobalamin, has a cyanide molecule in it. That's why it's called cyanocobalamin. And most of the people in the health food arena that have looked at it have said, why would we want something that has a cyano in it, which cyanide is harmful, when there are other good ones out there? I don't know that the cyano is really causing the problems that some of these people are worried about, but since there are plenty that don't have it, I don't use those. I use the methylcobalamin and the hydroxycobalamin. So, your doctor has been intentionally misled, which is a little bit sad. In order to support the pharmaceutical companies, the physicians are taught that B12 must be injected. That's what they're taught. And, I can't be mad at them for doing what they're taught. I just am upset that they're not willing to learn. And very important that you need to be willing to learn. So is it true that swallowed B12s are very badly absorbed? Yes, swallowed B12s are badly absorbed. That's not absorbed. Some people have no problem whatsoever. We check their B12 level. The amount that's in their multi is holding it right where it needs to be. Is no problem whatsoever. But if we need more, we don't want to give them more swallowed. We want to give them something that is either a lozenge that sits in their mouth for 10, 15, 20 minutes, or a spray. You spray in the mouth and sort of swish around there for a while. That way we know it's going to get absorbed. The oral tissue absorbs B12 very well, and so sublingual sprays or slowly dissolving lozenges work very, very, very well, and then people don't have to go and get injections, which nobody especially loves anyway. So my favorite B12 products: B12 2000 lozenges from a company called Probiotics Research, and B12 liposomal spray from Redizor. Those are the two I like best. And I do something called kinesiology or muscle testing, and what I find in my practice is the vast majority, probably 95%, test best for the B12 2000 lozenges. So that's what I usually put people on. And as I said earlier, I'll sell them a bottle of 60 lozenges, and I'll say for the first bottle, let one dissolve in your mouth once a day, and from then on, once or twice a week is enough to hold it there. And doctors are also told that the way to test for B12 is a B12 test. Makes sense? What they're looking at is how much B12 is floating around in your serum. There's a type of testing called a functional test. And there are only certain types of nutrients for which a functional test exists. So what's the difference between a test that shows us how much is there or a functional test? Well, let's say we have a door in front of us, and we want that door to be strong enough that if a burglar comes and pushes against it, they don't just break the door and walk into your house. So the regular test would say, well, I see the door, I see the wood, I guess it's fine. That's like the test they run. How much B12 is in your blood? Well, range is 500 to 1200, you've got 700 or 800, that's fine. The functional test would be knocking on the door real hard like a burglar might and see if you go right through and break the door. So for B12, there is a functional test. And the functional test is called methyl, M-E-T-H-Y-L, and I may have it up there, M-E-T-H-Y-L, malonic, M-A-L-O-N-I-C, acid, methyl malonic acid. If your body doesn't have enough B12, it manufactures too much of this chemical called methylmalonic acid. And so if somebody does a blood level of methylmalonic acid, you want that level to be in the lower third of their reference range. If it's above that, it's an indication that you need more B12. And much more accurate than their test, which is just looking at how much is sitting there. So the spray has to be swished around in your mouth for a couple minutes. And that's another reason to use the lozenge, because you can't get that wrong by mistake and swallow it. If you know you're supposed to put the lozenge in your mouth, and don't chew on it, and don't swallow it, just leave it there until it dissolves. You don't have to think about it. It just sits there until it dissolves. You know, it moves around your mouth. I don't care where it is. Your saliva is washing over it, and when it's finally gone, it's gone. Whereas with the spray, somebody's going to put the spray or two sprays in your mouth. You've got to remember not to swallow it so it'll absorb. I like the lozenges a lot better for that also. The best B12 test, there we go, is a functional test called methylmalonic acid. If you have adequate B12, it will be in the lower third of the reference range for it. And so, you know, if you think you need more B12 and your doctor says your B12 is fine, you could say, would you run a methylmalonic acid test? And you get to see how good your doctor is. No, excuse me, how nice your doctor is. It's really sort of weird because we're in California, okay, the home of Kaiser Permanente. And I have many, many of my patients that Kaiser is their insurance program. And everybody thinks that their doctor is the same as everybody else's doctor, unless they've had a bunch of different ones. You go, oh my God, I love this one, and I hated that one. But many of them think they're the same. So I'll ask somebody, I'll give them my blood test list. My blood test list has about 20 different tests on it. And it's got the test, the name of the test, and what it's testing for. And in some cases, if the doctor doesn't understand that test, why? And then in the back, there's a letter to the doctor saying, dear physician, we share this patient. Any of the tests on the other side of this page that you are willing to run will help me to help our patient. I'm just trying to be nice so we don't have to pay for it because they can get it done through the insurance. And it amazes me how many times I'll hand this to a patient and the patient will say, David, I've got Kaiser. They're not going to run any of this stuff. And of course, the patient that was in yesterday hands me a stack of, my Kaiser patient ordered all of them. There were two they couldn't get. Everything is here. So again, it's not Kaiser, it's your doctor. Some of them will run the stuff, some of them won't. Some of them will run it once or twice, but you run it too often. Somebody up above says, to the doctor, why are you doing all this? So it most often is the doctor and not where you are. But talk about nasty and ignorance, that's the person that comes back and said, the doctor just handed it back to me and said, I don't even know what this stuff is. That's the reason I write what it is right on there. Read the damn piece of paper. It tells you what it is, why I want this form of testing, why it's more accurate, and what the nutrient is for. So when somebody says, I don't even know what this stuff is, that's saying, I'm an idiot, I'm not going to look at this, I don't want to know what it is, I'm not going to do it. Whereas a lot of people will. And, you can ask for a different doctor. I had one doctor, and again, I never get to meet these doctors because they're not, open-minded would be the best. They're not open-minded enough when the patient that we're sharing starts massively improving from a condition from which you can't improve, as far as they were taught. They don't say, give me that guy's name, I'd like to find out what it is he's doing, because I'd like to try it with some other patients, because I've never seen anybody improve from your condition. They don't do that. But every once in a while, there's somebody who's at least a little open, and so we run a cardio ion panel, and I give the patient their copy, and my copy goes in my file, and they show it to the doctor. And most of them go, I'm not interested in that stuff. But every once in a while, it just happened a couple weeks ago, actually a couple months ago, I've been off for a couple weeks, and she said, my doctor looked at the ion panel that we ran. He said, oh my God, I didn't even know we could test for this. can I make copies of this? So, you have some people, it's too few. I saw a hand somewhere. Yes?
Do you know the difference between the absorption of methylcobalamin to cobalamin as far as B12? Have you seen any
Different people. Yeah, different. You can take the same thing with 3 different people and get different absorptions with 3 different people. The person that owns Perk Labs, who I know, is a PhD, has done a lot of research. He wants to, and a lot of companies do this, he wants to have his product different so that people will buy his. So instead of using methylcobalamin, which is what almost all of the better companies use, he chose to use hydroxycobalamin, which you won't find anywhere. He says he's got a small study that says that it was slightly more absorbable. Well, maybe in those people. But yeah, we're the variable. So it's hard to see the difference unless you take a whole bunch of people and switch back and forth between them.
Yeah, I'm the MTHFR donor
Yep.
with the DNA issue, so...
Yeah, methyl tetrahydrofolate.
I can take
Yep.
any of them, like you said,
Yep.
in terms of the person. But how many people know if they're an MTHFR or not?
My patients all do, because I can determine that in a muscle test in 10 seconds. If they test for the converted folate, they've got the defect. If they test for the regular folate, they don't. But what's interesting, she's talking about the fact that many people have a DNA issue, that they can't convert the synthetic folic acid that's in supplements into 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is the form in which the body's cells use it. And the problem is that the people that are studying DNA don't know as much as they should. And so they'll run a DNA test, and they'll tell you, you've got both of these SNPs turned off. SNPs are single nucleotide polymorphisms, and that's where the gene is partially turned off, totally turned off, totally turned on, partially turned on. And they say if it's totally off, if the SNPs are totally off, you can't convert folic acid into the form the body needs. Well, we've proven that that's false. How? Because folate has a functional test. It's a big long name. It's called the neutrophilic hypersegmentation index. So I can test somebody who is getting the synthetic folic acid in their supplement and whose doctor has said, your body's not absorbing that. You need to be getting this. And we run that test, and their folate level is totally fine, and they don't need to change. And they test the DNA and say the body can't do that. I go, sorry, we did a functional test and it's doing it. So you're wrong. So a lot of the stuff that people are being told based on DNA testing, which is still in its infancy, doesn't tell us as much as they think it's telling us. All right. So I decided as I was going over all this stuff that I wanted to add one more. And the reason I wanted to add it is not because there isn't one more. There are dozens and dozens more. It's because the last issue that I got of one of my medical newsletters, actually I think it might have been, no, it wasn't Jonathan Wright's, it was Frank Schallenberger's, I was going over choline, which I know very well and I have all my patients on. But, this could be an 18-hour course, this could be a 3-day course, and I was just trying to keep it down to, 1.5 to 2 hours. But they were going over so much about choline, I went, let's add choline in here. So I put this in 20 minutes before you got here. I just sat down at the computer and added a couple slides. So, my course on nutritional supplements, which is available to you, it's if you go to my website, you go to that green banner that says Courses by David Getoff. If you click on it, it brings you to the streaming site, and you can rent to watch for a bunch of months, or you can buy it, the 18-hour course on nutritional supplements. And that's just 18 hours on nutritional supplements. In addition to that, I've got a 30-hour course, which spends a fair amount of time on nutritional supplements, but it goes over everything. That's why I call it Attaining Optimal Health. And it's all available through, davidgetoff.com with the big green banner. But I decided if I was going to add one more, it would be choline, which is available in liquid, powder, granules, soft gels. Choline is in lecithin. Lecithin is a substance that people have been using, benefiting from for years and years and years. And it's best derived from soy. So because of that, it's one of the things that the FDA has sort of screwed up a little bit because of a regulation they came out with a bunch of years ago. A lot of people started yelling at the FDA, and partly rightly so, that they wanted them to mandate certain things had to be listed on food labels so that people that were reactive to those things would know, I'm not going to buy that, it's got this in it. So, it had to say that it had gluten in it, or had wheat in it, or gluten-free. Peanuts, because a lot of people are allergic to peanuts, that peanut allergy, they now are fairly sure, they won't admit this to you, but the holistic experts that have looked into it say that most likely the reason so many kids are now so allergic to peanuts, that if somebody eats a peanut over here, the person over there, could die, is because of stuff having to do with vaccinations. But in any event, they started labeling all these different things on foods. And one of the things a lot of people react to is the horribly genetically modified soybean. And so they wanted it to say contains soy on the label. Now, let's say somebody with a paper mill, and they've got all this extra paper, or somebody with a mill that cuts down trees and makes pine boards to sell to Home Depot and Dixieland, whatever, realizes that the sawdust has minerals in it. I'm just making this up. I mean, it does, but and they do an analysis and they go, wow, there's a lot of sodium and potassium and magnesium in the sawdust. We can send this to this special lab that's being developed, and they can extract those minerals from the pine, and instead of it just being garbage, it gets used and they'll pass for it. And actually, a lot of the sawdust does get used. It gets compressed in these little tiny pellets that are both used as cat litter and as fuel for pellet stoves. So they do that. The question is, if some people are allergic to pine, and some are, should the FDA mandate that when they have potassium and magnesium in there that they extracted from the sawdust, that the product has to say, contains pine? No, because it doesn't contain pine. It contains the calcium and magnesium that was extracted from the pine sawdust. Calcium and magnesium are not pine. However, FDA wasn't smart enough to think about that. So lecithin, the best quality lecithin being derived from soy, every time a substance has lecithin in it, could be a chocolate bar, could be another really good example would be salad dressing, because lecithin is an emulsifier. So if you have an oil and vinegar dressing, and you don't want people to have to shake it all the time, because if you shake oil and vinegar, pour it on your salad, and then 5 minutes later you take a look at it, and the oil and vinegar is totally separated. And you shake it up really, 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 really well, and 5 minutes later it's separated, because water and oil don't mix. But if you took a teaspoon of lecithin, and you added it in there in liquid form, and shook it up, it would mix and never come apart ever again. Because lecithin is an emulsifier that emulsifies the oil so it can now stay in the liquid form even with the water-based vinegar. So, because a lot of things, salad dressings, chocolates, many, many different things, use lecithin because it's an emulsifier, there are lots of things that contain lecithin. And every one of them, as soon as the FDA made that new requirement, I don't remember, 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago, now has to say, contains soy on the front. It doesn't. It contains lecithin. Just like my example, it contains, magnesium that they pulled out of the pine dust. So people are now avoiding things that they don't react to, that there's nothing in there. And I have people that are very reactive to soy. And they can eat a chocolate bar that says, made with lecithin, because it's not soy, it's lecithin. So these companies don't want you to not buy their product since that changeover happened. So instead of using, and they need lecithin in there, because it makes their product work. So instead of using soy lecithin, which is the one that all the research has been done on to show how healthy it is for us, they're now using sunflower lecithin, which is nowhere near as good for us, but it does what they want. So that way they don't have to say contains soy, because they're using sunflower lecithin. I like the ones that are from soy lecithin because it works better. But choline is in lecithin. So if you're going to get choline, the choline came from some form of lecithin. Best derived from soy. We need choline for memory, nerves, overall brain function, and it actually has a much longer word that is usually used, because it isn't usually just choline, it's usually phosphatidylcholine. It's a phospholipid. And lecithin comes in many forms. So one good, reasonably priced product is called non-GMO lecithin granules, and it's manufactured by Now Foods. That's one of the least expensive ones out there. You can get a 2-pound jar of NOW's non-GMO lecithin granules, and that's a really good way to bring it in. And yeah, of course, it says contains soy on it. I could care less. I don't generally eat soy, but in that, I'm eating lecithin. And a heaping tablespoon, as much as you can heap on there, you can't overdo it, of those granules with every meal is enough for most people. And so that is helping your nerves. It's helping your memory. It's helping your brain. It's helping the fats that are very good for us that are in your meal. If you're eating a good meal, which is a high good fat meal, it's helping them stay in solution and not clog anything. It's helping clean out your liver. So fantastic. Heaping tablespoon with each meal is generally enough for most people. I use way more than that if I'm trying to reverse fatty liver disease in somebody or they have neurological or brain conditions. I might use 3 times that. But otherwise, 1 heaping tablespoon per meal does a really, really good job. I have reversed fatty liver in people, and usually what happens is that the doctor, who has not seen that happen, goes, I've never seen fatty liver reverse, and my goodness, you did it in like 4 months. But they don't say that to me. They say it to the patient. And do they say, what exactly were you doing? I have other people with fatty liver? No. Not especially when the patient says, yeah, I'm taking nutrients with a nutrition professional. Why not be interested? I mean, you have other people with this condition. Why not be interested when something is reversed that you don't know how to reverse? Beats me. All right, so there is a fair amount of choline in egg yolks. The only thing you can do to make an egg not healthy.
Cook it too much.
No, cooking it too much will only make it less healthy. To make it not healthy, you have to eat the egg white only. Because all of the essential nutrients, all the essential fatty acids, all the fat-soluble vitamins, they're all in the yolk. So if somebody forced me, hopefully this will never happen, for the next 6 months, you're going to have eggs with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's the only thing we're going to give you. And you only have one choice. You can say you want the whites or the yolks. You can't have the whole egg. I go, but I want the whole egg. That's the way nature... No, we're only going to give you one. All right, fine. Give me 5 yolks 2 or 3 times a day. Because the yolk has more protein than the white. And it's got all the essential nutrients, all the essential fatty acids, all the choline. So the only way you can destroy the value of an egg is by not eating the yolk. And they have done so much research on eggs. Absolutely 100%. All the scientists know that the yolk is the healthiest part of the egg. And somehow or other it doesn't get to the medical doctors. They're still telling people, don't eat too many eggs. If you're going to eat them, don't eat the yolk. Really? But that's because they don't try to keep up on any dietary research. If it's drug research, they look. If it's diet research, they don't. So something comes out, they don't know about it. Yep.
Is there any reason that you know of why not to eat the white? If you have digestive issues, are there...
I have a very small number of people who, when they eat eggs, they have a reaction. So they have some kind of reactivity or allergy to eggs. And what I always do is I want to find out, is that reactivity to garbagely raised eggs that are, cooped up inside eating garbage? Is it to all eggs? Is it to cooked eggs? Is it to raw eggs? Is it to the yolk? Is it to the white? So I will have people run a bunch of different little tests at home, and I'll give them a really good quality egg. Really good quality egg, very simple. The box has to have 2 things on it. It has to say either pastured or pasture-raised. I don't care which way it says it. Either pastured or pasture-raised. And it has to say organic. It has to say organic. Organic and pastured or pasture-raised. It must not say free-range. It must not say cage-free, which is garbage. That's 30,000 chickens crammed in a barn. It has to say pastured or pasture-raised and organic. And some of the people go, wow, I don't react when I eat that. Wow, thank you so much, that's terrific. Okay, they were reacting to something having to do with the garbage quality of the eggs. Don't know what it was. Then I have other people that go, nope, still have the same reaction. Okay, now I want you to try and open a pasture-raised egg, put it in a glass, and just gulp it down in one gulp. You don't have to chew it. It's very, very easily digestible. People have been eating raw eggs for thousands of years. Some of the healthiest people out there put raw eggs in their smoothie every day. And some people go, darn, didn't have a reaction. Okay, so you're reacting to something that happens as the egg is cooked. We're looking for information. Then I have some people that say, I still have a reaction, it was a little bit less. Okay, now I want you to separate the eggs and try 1 day or 2 days in a row just the white, 2 days in a row just the yolk. And a whole bunch of people go, wow, it was just the white. Which, of course, eggs don't have whites. Eggs have yolks and clears. It's only white after you cook it. It's interesting that we call it the white of the egg. When the white of the egg is the shell. The other part should be called the clear and the yolk. It only becomes white when we cook it. But some of those people say, wow, the yolks are no problem. So I have people that can only eat the yolks because of a reactivity. Otherwise, I don't care. And I have some people that are only reactive to the regular eggs in the store, and I go find a store, health food store, that sells duck eggs. It's a completely different animal. And they go, wow, no problem, I can eat duck eggs. So there's all sorts of different possibilities, and we're just looking to see which one it is. So if somebody eats 12 to 18 eggs a week, as I do, as my wife does also, then they might be getting enough choline, because there's a fair amount of choline in the yolk. But that's what you need to be eating. You need to be eating 12 to 18 eggs a week. So if I have eggs, which I do, quite a number of days, that's what I have for breakfast, I will have either 4 or 5 eggs, obviously with the yolk. And I'll have 4 or 5 eggs cooked however I feel like cooking them, with whatever kinds of vegetables I may or may not put in there, just depends on what I'm doing. And then I'll have that along with maybe some bacon, but if I have it with bacon, the bacon has to be from hairy pigs. The pigs have to be covered with hair. They can't be the slick pigs that we all have now. They've got to be hairy pigs. Those are the old types of pigs. They're called heirloom. Just like your grandfather's pocket watch was an heirloom, well, the old varieties of pigs are heirloom. So I want heirloom pigs, outdoors, fresh air, fresh water, covered with hair. And that means that because they're good quality pigs and eating well, their fat is very good for me. So I don't even strain off the fat. I don't even take the bacon and put it on paper towels. The whole thing goes in my plate. So like maybe 4 eggs and 4 or 5 strips of bacon and all the fat. And of course it all absorbs back into the bacon as it cools off a little bit. Then I take a bunch of one of my favorite cheeses, which is going to be an organic, raw milk cheese, and I sprinkle that on top of that. And just in case that's not enough fat for you, I'll have a 12-ounce glass of double-fat whole milk from grass-fed cows. What's double-fat whole milk? Well, this is the United States. In the United States, in order for them to call it whole on the label, it has to be 3.25% butterfat content. What do they do with the rest? Because no cows give you 3.25% butterfat. They will give you a little bit more than that. Well, if it only needs 3.25%, they're not going to waste money. They make sure it's exactly 3.25%, and they take the extra, and they use it to make their butter and their half and half and their heavy cream. Well, I buy it from a raw milk dairy that doesn't pasteurize or homogenize the milk. They just make sure it's totally clean and has no bacteria in it, except yogurt bacteria, acidophilus and bifidus, the ones that are good for you. They're all grass-fed, they're all organic, and because they don't do anything to the milk, it just comes out of the cow and goes into the containers, the milk, depending on time of year, which grasses are growing, etc., has between 6 and 7% butterfat. So it's basically double-fat whole milk, along with my bacon that I didn't drain, along with my eggs and egg yolks. And I eat that for breakfast, and then I'm not hungry for 7 hours.
Where do you get the hairy pig?
Hairy pigs, a couple places. There's a place on El Cajon Boulevard called The Heart and Trotter. And The Heart and Trotter gets their pigs from cookpigs.com, which is a company, they're not online anymore, that uses the old pigs. I order mine in from Wallace Farms. WallaceFarms.com. They have fantastic, their breakfast links are amazing, and their bacon is amazing. That's all I get from them. I get breakfast links, and I get their bacon from WallaceFarms.com, and it gets delivered to you, packed in ice or dry ice, and I just throw it in my freezer, and I take one package out at a time and leave it in the refrigerator. And those are all from outdoor, hairy pigs, heirloom, raised correctly, and I love them to death.
Is it Wallace?
Correct. Wallace, Wallace Farms. So if I have eggs, I'm having 4. If I have 4 eggs 5 days, 1 week, 4 times 5 is 20. I just had 20 eggs that week. And again, I don't ever restrict the amount of a healthy food. I might restrict the portion size. I mean, if somebody says, so if I'm going to have grass-fed and grass-finished steak or lamb, how much can I have? I go, the week? No, for the meal. I go, well, you can have whatever you want, but there's a limit to how much your body can absorb, and the rest of it's just going to come out in your poop. So, I mean, if you do a lot of exercise, if you're very active, you can have a 12-ounce steak. That's fine, especially when it's grass-fed and grass-finished. But if you go to Texas, with these, you're driving down the highway and you got these big billboards saying, 24-ounce T-bone steaks. Really? First of all, it's not grass-fed and grass-finished, so I don't want it anyway. And second of all, your body can't handle 24 ounces of beef all at once. So I like the portion to be between 7 and 10, 7 and 12, something like that, and I want it to be the good quality stuff. But yeah, I don't restrict eggs. Eggs, if you have a really good food, or beef or lamb, I don't worry about that at all.
How is your cholesterol?
Cholesterol has been shown in more research studies than I can add anymore to have zero effect on health in any way, shape, or form unless it's too low. Now, there's lots of different cholesterols. There's LDL, VLDL, HDL, different size particles, everything. HDL does make a difference. If the HDL is too low, your heart disease rate goes up. LDL and total have been shown to make no difference whatsoever. Zero. And you can go to my website and take a look at the area on cholesterol and read some of the papers that are written by some of the cardiologists. You can go online or just put cholesterol in. I think I've got one of Gary Taub's videos where he goes over all this. I don't test my cholesterol because if there's a number that has no meaning to me, why do I want to waste money looking at it? But every once in a while I run a panel on myself, and because that panel includes cholesterol, it's there. I didn't ask for it, it's there. So last time I looked at my cholesterol, even though I wasn't trying to look at it, I was looking at something else, my total cholesterol was 253, which is very healthy. When cholesterol is a problem is when it gets below 200. Because the more below 200 it is, the higher your cancer and neurological disease rates are, because cholesterol is very, very badly needed. So one of the things I say in my class is, if you want to be certain why anybody would want this, I can't quite figure out. But if you want to be certain that as you get older, you are going to lose your memory way faster than you should, the two best ways to do that are be on a low-fat diet or take a drug to lower your cholesterol. There's so much research on the damaging effects, it's unbelievable.
Amen.
But again, go to my website. There's an area there on fats and oils and cholesterol. And instead of listening to me, read some of the articles by MDs, PhDs, and cardiologists. And plus the last lecture I gave, which is already up online on Google, not on Google, on YouTube. I put a slide up. The entire slide has got like 10 books on cholesterol. A lot of the ones I like best. They're all up there. You can copy them down, take a look at them.
David?
Yeah.
Touch on the one food that causes heart disease, cancer, arthritis.
Well, the food that causes heart disease, cancer, and all that other different things, not arthritis, but heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and obesity. I call it a classification. I give it a name. I got a trademark. I call them sabotage foods. Makes sense. They're sabotaging your health. What are they? Starches, sugars, and alcohol. And if you go on my website and you put in the word starch, it should bring you to my lecture on starches, sugars, and alcohol.
And just one other thing. Vitamin A toxicity. A lot of people think you take too much.
Vitamin A toxicity is coming from the doctors. So the doctors were taught, be careful about too much vitamin A, it can cause a problem. And if you look at their book, it's not my book, it's their book, it's called the Merck Manual, and you go to hypervitaminosis A, I think it's on page 34, 35 of the current edition. They go over how much vitamin A it takes to cause a problem. So in adults, you would need to be taking over 300,000 units a day for many, many months. Why the hell is somebody taking that much? That's ridiculous. I might have them on 100,000 for a month if they have cancer, but those amounts are really high. Then they'll say a vitamin A-like substance called isoretinoid can cause that. No, that was a chemotherapy agent that is a vitamin A-like substance. That's a drug. That's not vitamin A. So there's all sorts of things. So a 10,000 or 20,000, and of course, if you have a breathing disorder, asthma, emphysema, COPD, those people always, their body is using up even more vitamin A than the general public. So those are the people I usually have on 25 or 30,000 units a day. And the thing to remember about any substance, but vitamin A is a good example, is you cannot get an overload on a substance which is being used up as fast or faster than you are taking it. Very simple. You cannot ever develop, it's impossible to develop an overload on a substance that your body is using up as fast or faster than you're taking it. So if you tested somebody's vitamin D, and their vitamin D was, I've seen ND come back, that was scary. That stands for none detected. but it comes back at like 10 or 18. And I put them on 5,000, and it brings them up to 30. And I put them on 6,000 or 7,000, it brings them up to 40. I put them on 10,000 a day, and finally they're up to 60 where I want them. And their doctor says, that's too much. No, that's the amount they need to hold them in the right range. Because it's a vitamin. Therefore, your body is using it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you take an amount that holds you there, and you check it a month from now, it's still in about the same place. And 2 months from now, it's still in about the same place. 3 months, well, how come it's still in the same place? You keep on taking 10,000 every day. I go, really? Really? So if you have a plant, and you water your plant every single week, are you going to be silly enough to say, how come I haven't flooded the house? Because it's using up what you're watering it with. Your body is eating the vitamin D. Your body is taking the vitamin A. As long as the amount coming in is not way more than your body needs, or is a soluble vitamin, like C and stuff like which you can't overload at all, you're never going to get an overload. And they don't recognize that. Yes?
I think the concern is that we keep hearing about is senior citizens that are barely able to survive. They're doing okay, they're living, they're moving about, but internally things are now at this age in life going on. We're not active like you, we're not smart like you, but we're just...
How do you know you're not smart like me? I don't know any of your knowledge or IQ levels.
But there's something that's going on in the body that causes us to store or absorb or take on certain vitamins and hold them there in places a little too long. And right now the liver is the one we hear a lot about.
Right, the liver can be overloaded by vitamin A. We know the liver, and that's the reason when I started the lecture that I said every single person I work with starts on kidney and liver support. The first 2 products I use are always kidney and liver support. Because I want to make sure, and that's a perfect example, of all the things that I bring in, that I'm not going to cause any overloads with even the couple that might overload, like A, that's one of the few, because I'm making sure the liver is doing its job correctly. But all nutrients are testable. So if the doctor says, that's way too much vitamin A, well, if the person's already been on it for 4 months, let's check their vitamin A level. And if their vitamin A level is not, up in the ceiling somewhere, it's where it belongs, then the doctor was wrong. And anything we can test, that's why I love things that are testable. Everything isn't testable, but nutrients are. Some of them are specialty laboratories you have to go to. You just can't call, LabCorp or Quest, the 2 big, large associations. They don't have tests for everything, but many of them do. So vitamin K, for example, is what they call a fat-soluble vitamin. Therefore, you could have too much. And the one that they test for is vitamin K1, and that's the one I want to know about. Everybody's screaming vitamin K2. Nope, that's not what I found. So I run a vitamin K1 test. And I run it from either Quest or run it from LabCorp, and it comes back, and it's in the bottom third. And what did I say? I want nutrients in the top 20 or 30%.
So is there an easy, quick way that you can test for vitamin A? Is muscle testing workable?
If the person really knows what they're doing, muscle testing is workable. But you can do it. There's a lab test for vitamin A.
Yeah,
it's not that expensive.
I know, but that's a lot of effort and work, and
not if somebody thinks they're getting too much of something.
Yeah, but we're not that key gung ho. So I'm just asking for people who just want to do it quick and just think this might be a possibility or concern. Can muscle testing?
If somebody is really good at muscle testing, which most people aren't, but you see, if I'm muscle testing somebody for vitamin A, I'm testing both my regular A from Carlson and the Probiotics micellized A, which bypasses liver function. And if they test for neither of them, then they probably have enough A. But many people, especially older people, and of course, older people, when I was 30 was 40, and when I was 40 was 50, and when I was 50 was, and now that I'm going to be 68, I don't know what older people are anymore. Because I are an older people. But of course, my father was 89, so he would say I wasn't an older people. So everybody has a different thing. When I'm 105 and still lecturing, I'll be able to say I'm an older people, and probably people won't disagree with me.
But if I have somebody on the micellized vitamin A from Biotics, which doesn't require liver function to process it, I don't worry about it at all. But, most doctors, I would hope that if you say, I've been taking a vitamin A supplement, and I've heard that you can take too much vitamin A, would you run my retinol level? Would you run my vitamin A level? Most of them, since they would love to tell you to stop taking a vitamin, I don't know why, but they would, will run your level and take a look at it, and you get to see. Also, if you're taking something that's hurting your liver, the liver enzymes go out of whack. So if somebody's checking those liver values that I said are not very accurate, because your liver can be working nowhere near as good as you'd like it, but yet good enough to keep it in range, and you're taking something, vitamin A, even a multi. That's why I said at the beginning, some people take a multi and they go, the multis make me sick. Well, the people that say the multis make them sick, if they keep taking that multi for a few weeks and making them sick, their liver values get elevated. So their SGOT and SGPT or ALT and AST will go out of range, and the doctors do know that. I've had people that have come in and they said, yeah, my liver values are up, and the doctor said, he said, must be all those supplements you're taking. And so they stop the supplements for 2 weeks, and liver values stay exactly where they are, because that wasn't what it was. It's one of his drugs. But it could be. It's possible. The other things that are destroying everything these days are not being talked about at all, which is why I did an entire hour-and-a-half lecture on them at the Encinitas Library, and that's also on my YouTube channel. And that's electric fields. So if you want to inflame the body, you want to make it so the body, your organs are inflamed, and you're going to keep them inflamed 24 hours a day, just make sure that wherever you are, there's a whole bunch of wireless. Now, obviously, you can't change that here. You're not going to get them to stop the Wi-Fi. And most people have gotten rid of their safe, harmless corded landlines, because they don't want to pay for 2 phones, because they don't use them anymore. They use the cancer-causing one instead. So everybody decides what they want to do. And, again, I don't make anybody do anything. We go out to dinner with friends, and the friends, it's so funny. I should bring a video camera and tape it. And I'll see the couple are with, glancing at me and talking to each other and looking at the menu like they're afraid to order something because I'm going to think poorly of them. And as soon as I see that happening, I go, please, you need to understand something. Nothing you eat is going to affect my health. Eat whatever you want. Nothing you eat is going to affect my health. I don't care. You get to decide what you want to do. But, my house doesn't have Wi-Fi. My house doesn't have cordless phones. I don't carry a cell phone. Everything in my house is hardwired, because I want my house to be a very, very safe place, because I want to have the same memory that I have at 68. I want to have that at 108. But everybody has to get to decide what they want to do, and that's a hard one. Because unless you live in your own house that's a detached house, you can't make all those decisions. And I don't understand that. But all of the various different things that inflame us. But sugar, starch, and alcohol, those are all very inflammatory foods. And those, although none of them contain any cholesterol, those increase your cholesterol, because since they cause inflammation, the body says, well, because the amount of potato this person is eating, because the bread this person had, because the pasta they're eating, because the wine they had for dinner, I need to make more cholesterol to protect them. And your body makes more cholesterol. And people are always surprised when I put them on a really healthy diet. It's on my website as Healthy Diet Challenge. Because it's a challenge. I tell people, do it for 60 days and see how you feel. And so we double, triple, or quadruple the amount of fats they're eating. We switch them for the fats that their doctors said were healthy to ones that their doctors said are unhealthy, but their doctor's wrong. So we get them off their margarine, we get them off the canola oil, off the soybean oil, off the safflower oil, and now they're on butter, lard, but good quality ones, the way I like it to be, coconut oil, palm fruit oil, and they stop the starch, sugar, and alcohol. The fats go way up, and they get their next blood test back. And the doctor says, what are you doing? Because your cholesterol went down, your triglycerides went down, maybe your liver values normalized. And the person says, well, I'm now eating a dozen eggs a week. You told me not to eat any. I threw out the bread, but I'm eating butter. I'm pouring melted butter on my broccoli and cauliflower. I'm cooking my eggs in coconut oil or ghee. I'm no longer taking the skin off the chicken. I'm now eating it. but I'm making sure the chicken's a really good quality chicken, and the doctor doesn't know what to do because you've done everything wrong, and yet the values that they wanted to move have moved in the right direction. So, it's hard when what you're taught doesn't get you the results you want. And so the reason that the doctor will often say, I know you told me you'd like to do some of this stuff with food, but food won't do what you want. It doesn't work. We've tried it. Because they were given the wrong information. And so food changes don't work if the food changes are the wrong food changes. When the food changes are the right food changes, they do work, and the doctors don't know what to do because they were taught all those things are wrong. Yes?
So if we ate, as you're talking about, would we need all of the vitamins and supplements?
That's a question that gets asked of me all the time. If we eat really, really well, do we need vitamins and supplements? And the problem is, and it's a multifaceted problem, and no one part of it is any more important than the other. Part number one is that the foods that we eat today don't resemble the foods of our ancestors. They look like them, but their nutrient value is through the floor.
Is that from the soils?
It's from the soils and the hybridization of the plant, because they're trying to make them keep longer, ship better, produce more, be more insect resistant, all the things that make it less nutritious. So our food is less nutritious. Then if you take wireless technologies, stress levels, pollution in the air, pollution in the water, pollution coming out of our carpets and everything else, much higher than it was thousands of years ago. So the body needs more nutrients than it did before, and is getting less nutrients than it did before. And because of that, you cannot have a person that doesn't have multiple deficiencies, regardless of how well they're eating, if you run the right tests. And they have. We've run those tests. They wanted to see, which diets were best and which diet didn't have a bunch of deficiencies. They were surprised. Everybody had multiple deficiencies, regardless of what they were eating. And that's because of a combination of the food not being as good, both because of the types of foods and the soils, and because all the pollution and everything and stress and everything on us make it so we need even more. And of course, people are using shampoos and cream rinses and conditioners and skin lotions and all sorts of things that have unpronounceable chemicals on them that are now getting into your body. Your body has to deal with all these different things. And so it's hard. It's really hard. In my book, Abundant Health in a Toxic World, I say the basic 7 are the first things that you have to have if you're going to have some nutrients. And the basic 7 is, and that doesn't even count the liver and kidney, because that's not a nutrient. Even though you need it, it's not a nutrient. The basic 7 is a good quality multivitamin, multimineral, taken at least twice a day, and all the things that you can't have enough of in there. So that's number 1. And then extra A, C, D, E, fish oil, and a probiotic. That's the basic 7. And could somebody make a multi that has enough of almost everything in it that you might not need any extras? You might be able to make a 14 or 20 capsule a day multi that might be able to do that. But you might not, because some of those things you can't put in there because they'll degrade the capsules, because they're oils or something else. So it's hard. It's very hard.
Liquid.
Yep.
So the first thing you said about a good multivitamin,
Hmm?
did you give a reference to what that might be?
Yes, I gave 2 multis up there on the one of the first few slides, which will be up there. One of them is called Ultra Frida, F-R-E-E-D-A, Ultra Frida Iron Free, which is 2 capsules with breakfast and 2 with dinner. And the other is called pH Balancer Core from Mother Earth Labs. And when this entire production is up on YouTube, you'll be able to watch them and stop it and pause it and take notes and everything else.
Thank you.
We want to eat at your house.
Yes.
So, 2 or 3 months ago, I started getting aching in my feet.
Okay.
So I went to the doctor, they did some tests, and they said, yes, you, number 1, have arthritis, and number 2 is your blood flow to your feet is not adequate.
It's restricted, correct. It's not adequate, yes.
So,
That's caused by starch, sugar, and alcohol. Yeah.
well, I don't do a lot of starch, I don't do any alcohol.
Well, then, those are the 3 in our foods: starch, sugar, and alcohol. So, potatoes, corn, bread, pasta, all those different
I
things.
avoid those things.
Okay. Well, because most of us are deficient in omega-3 fats and vitamin E to protect them, the blood doesn't flow as well as it should. Because it's not doing that, that eventually happens. Because people are not getting adequate amounts of the nutrients to support the neurological system, such as B12, all those different things. All those things, I reverse that in a lot of different people, but it can be done. Thank you all. I appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David.